Nice.
Well, howdy to our viewers. Welcome to Verelia's Cauldron. We're going to be taking a break from the Tale of Sybil's Spear this week as we have some folks who are unable to join us. But in the meantime, we are going to build off of some homebrew that we've been cooking over on the sides. This is our second episode of Verelia's Cauldron, in which we'll kind of workshop things and homebrew some things for the world of Witternacht, but using the mechanics of D&D 5e. Like to go ahead and thank Wizards of the Coast. We aren't using Sirenscape tonight, but still a shout out to them as they do provide our music most nights for our Sybil
Mm-hmm.
Spear stream. And in addition to them, Fantasy Grounds, which our DM always runs our games through as well. We're not necessarily associated with these projects, but we do like to go ahead and celebrate them because they got some cool stuff. But without further ado, I will go ahead and introduce the folks who are joining us tonight. We have our Sybil Spear members. Conrad, you want to go ahead and introduce yourself?
Sure. Um, I'm Conrad. Um, I play Salinas, our warlock, in our Tale of Sybil Spear game. And if you've caught any of our limited series, plug to go check those out on our YouTube. Thick as Thieves. I play Arbor, the fighter. Um, yeah. Enjoy D&D a lot. Enjoy coming up with homebrew stuff. And I love to see it appear in our world of Witternacht.
Jeff, next on the screen, next to go.
I'm Jeff. I play Yofrir, the barbarian fighter multi-class. He's currently, or the whole party is currently in his homeland of Torsland. So it's gonna be a fun adventure.
And Saga, bring us on home.
Hi, I am Saga. I play Sybil Spears, a resident ranger rogue multiclass. In our limited series of Thick as Thieves, I play Percy, the bartificer. And I am here to just help give my critiques and opinions over the two wonderful homebrew that we have for us here today, which are both ranger homebrews. So it's like I like to think I don't, but I'm gonna pretend like I have some expertise when it comes to rangers.
No, yeah, your input's going to be very important. I was very glad that you're going to be on this one.
And I've played Ranger a few times in some other games, so they've definitely been a lot of fun. I like them.
I've never been able to play a ranger by themselves. I have always had to multi-class,
To
which
be
I had a
fair, to be fair, Lonan is ranger rogue multiclass, so I can't say much either.
um, but cool. I'm AJ. I play our druid Zedri, and in Thick as Thieves, I play Irua. Played Irua. Yeah, we'll go ahead and get started. As mentioned, both of the homebrew that we have for tonight are subclasses for the ranger class. So, Conrad, do you want to go ahead and kick things off?
Sure. So this is going to be very interesting. Kind of interesting connection between the two of them. Totally kind of unintentionally. Um, we both kind of came up with arcanely magic focused rangers. So to start off, I have brought to the table the Magi Hunter, a ranger that specializes in hunting down mages and spellcasters and abjuring them. Uh, Talking through the different features that um, that we get that they get at the different levels, um, and then we can move on to discussions. Sound reasonable? Okay. So specializes in preventing harmful magic to the world. I mentioned that. So we'll start off with their expanded spell list. So, the Magic Hunter gets access to expanded spell list. At 3rd level, gaining access to Dispel Magic. At yeah, there we go. At 5th level, they get Hold Person. Hold Person at 9th level, they get Dispel Magic. 13th, they get Counterspell, and 17th, they get Hold Monster. Right, so tracking down magic, stopping magic, and then some, a hold person, hold monster to hold people in place. You can't cast spells when you're paralyzed. Uh, and then the main feature that they get are their hunting hounds. So Magic Hunter gets hunting hounds, which are 2 spirits. They can summon in the form of hunting hounds. Be up to you what they look like, right? Probably depends on the personality of the ranger. If they're a fox, if they're a hunting cat, if they're a wolf, if they're a some sort of just bloodhound, coyote, whatever thing feels right to you. And you get and there are 2 of them, which is kind of the unique variety of having an animal companion. Is that they have both going to have slightly less health and uh, slightly less health, but and slightly less damage, but you do get 2 of them. So we'll go through. So they have, starting off at level 3 when you get them, armor class of 13. You can see their stats there. Hit points equal to 3 times your level in this class, in the ranger class, plus your wisdom modifier. They have the keen hearing and smell feat, where they have advantage on perception checks that rely on hearing or smell. They have a bite attack. Their bite attack is a +3 to hit with a reach of 5 feet. On the hit, does 1d6 +1 piercing damage. And they get a reaction, a protective instinct. If an ally within 5 feet of the hound would be hit by a spell attack, the hound can cast shield on the spell on the target ally and itself. So, cast the shield spell as a reaction, and will give +5 to AC to whatever the ally is, and hound itself. It's important to note this can only work on a spell attack. Once this effect is used, you can't use it again until you finish a long rest or until you, ranger player, expends a spell slot to do so. 7th level, you get Spellcaster's Bane. So you gain an additional favored enemy for rangers, which is spellcasters. Whenever you're tracking a group of creatures, you can immediately tell if any of them have the ability to cast spells. And you have advantage on ability checks to recall information about spell effects and identify any spells in use. And then you gain proficiency in Arcana if you don't already have it. So, at this point, your studies into magic, you should be able to identify what spells are being used if you can't immediately know what they are and what they do. 11th level, Strengthened Bond is going to be an upgrade to your hounds. When reach 11th level, their bite attack is going to increase to a +5 to hit, and the damage is going to move from 1d6 +1 to 2d6 +4. And their attacks will now be considered magical for the purpose of overcoming resistances. And their armor class will increase to 15, and a couple of their stats will increase by 1. And their protective instinct ability will increase from once per long rest to twice per long rest. And the last thing, capstone ability is Spell Unravel. As a reaction, you can stop a creature that you can see within 30 feet of you from casting a spell, and the spell stops. You immediately cast stopping of any spell, and the spell caster still has to consume that spell slot. If they're casting a 9th level spell, cancel out that spell. If they're casting a 1st level spell, cancel that spell. When you do, you can force the target to make a wisdom save against their spell save DC. And if they fail, they're stunned of your next turn. And you can use this ability once per long rest. So that's kind of the overview of our Magi Hunter.
Nice. I dig it. I am going to
Yeah.
pull up a secondary document so that we can kind of like write notes, things like that. And then we can
Absolutely.
share it at the end. But yeah,
Yeah.
hit us with it.
Open up the floor to I don't know, open up to the floor to the other three of you for what your thoughts are.
So
I've had this one in my pocket for a little while at this point, so I've looked over it a couple of times.
So, two well, three technically, but one of them will only make sense to us who have the thing open right now. One is also semantic. It's Rangers take their subclass at 3rd level, and you have it at 1st level for their first subclass feature.
Do I?
You do, yes. In the little features list. Like one of the first things I noticed, and it has bothered me every time I open it.
It should be 3rd level.
It should be. That's why I'm saying it's probably just a typo.
Yes.
And it's just me being semantic.
No, I mean that's good. That's good to spot.
Yeah. The other one is, once again, if anyone does have what Conrad sent us for the subclass open, why does the guy on there look like Jensen Ackles?
I don't have that one pulled up, so now everybody who likes Jensen Ackles is gonna have to painfully wait.
I guess he kind of could be. He does hunt down things that could be considered magical.
No, I agree. It's just like every time I look at the art, I'm just looking at Dean Winchester, but an elf. Just sorry, serious comment now as my last one. I want to understand. So one of the things that, especially when you have like wolves for D&D, especially if they're like a companion, normally they have pack tactics, and I wanted to ask, why did you not give the hounds pack tactics? Because
it was mostly a balance thing.
Yeah.
Because you get 2 of them. If it was just 1, that might have been something I would consider. But 2 of them having pack tactics. Then you start being able to like start building up pack tactics with multiple allies.
That's fair.
So it's definitely a thing to consider. I hadn't thought of that before.
Yeah. I was just wondering because I noticed it wasn't on there, and it's like that's normally something,
Sure.
when you have like a woven creature companion. But I do agree with you, it probably would fuck up the balance or mess with the balance a lot.
Yeah.
I just wanted to ask if that was something you'd already thought about, or if it was just something that, once again, it's just like the balance just seemed wonky.
Sure.
It could also be a thing that they gain at a later level.
Being
That's
part
That
of
a good
way
thought.
they're not at
on.
the same kind of power level the whole time. They get a little bit of something as well.
Yeah.
Honestly, I feel
if
like.
you'll...
Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
I feel like, because it says here the strengthen bond at 11th level,
Yes.
they get a higher dex and wisdom score, and also an AC of 15.
And also increase to their damage.
Yeah. I would say that if you wanted to, and I think either way this could be balanced, you could replace one of those with pack tactics.
Sure.
Or keep it as it is. I think that there is
or even kind of split it up between the next couple features that you gain as well.
Yeah.
Instead of having all of those on 11th level, take like one of them with pack tactics to whenever the next feature would be.
Mm-hmm.
Sure.
Because for rangers, I think you could almost yeah, I think some of your levels in the feature list are wrong now that I'm looking at it again.
It shouldn't be. I mean,
It's
third,
Yeah, because
three,
there's an infant.
third,
3, 7,
7,
11.
11, 15.
Yeah.
15, right?
It is. Alright, I have the PHB right here
Go. Yeah.
as my
Sure.
reference. 3, 7, 11,
And then 15.
15.
15. Yeah, but on the features list, it's
I think you
I'll
have
just say
it
3rd,
17.
6th, 10th, 14th, 17th.
Yeah.
So the numbers are slightly off.
They're not wrong
On-
on the document I have though.
They're wrong in the little, the little like list that's like the features and the level next to it. That's the only spot it's wrong on.
Oh, because you're reading the yes. I
I'm
see
reading
what's-
off of the original thing sent.
Gotcha. Sorry, I should send you the
the Google Doc.
There is an
Google Doc.
updated version.
Yeah, the Google Doc is all
Cool.
correct.
I should.
Oh, I've
Yes,
not
I'm
gotten
sorry.
the
I should
Google.
do that. I didn't think about. I sent it to. I sent it to AJ because it
Yeah.
has it's easier to see for like the stream. I didn't
Yeah.
realize there were that many differences.
I mean, it's also
I
just me
sent,
being.
sent you the link.
It's also just me being nitpicky.
No, that's that's the whole point of this whole stream is nitpicky.
That's fair.
I do wonder
Um,
if maybe you could use both of the hounds as functionally like one unit and add conditional like pack tactics if they're like both in the vicinity. So like it takes both of them in order to apply the effect. Because I feel like what I've noticed across a lot of the familiar bound kind of like ranger classes and even other classes like artificer is sometimes that player is a lot more focused on their familiars because they know the abilities or the boons that they can give. So I feel like you can put the trust in the player of having like an altered pack tactics because they're going to be playing so tactically if they are playing a ranger to begin with because it's ranged combat most of the time. Unless you're playing a martial ranger, which respect for them.
Yes. Absolutely.
But
yeah. Yeah. Okay, that's definitely something to consider. It's the same reason I didn't. This is probably a very small detail, but uh, most of the for like things like the wildfire spirit and the artificers, like oh, I forget the name of it. The
the Battlesmith companion.
Oh yeah, the
Battlesmith companion.
the Steel Defender.
There you go. Yeah.
Steel Defender. Yes, there it is. Their text includes you can have them do this, this, and this, and this, and I removed help because being able to use your bonus action to have your hounds give 2 help actions seemed like that was a little bit balance breaking. So there was that small detail of they can't actually give the help action.
I think that also it makes sense because I'm approaching this as like we're all like role players. We play D&D for
Sure.
a lot of it for the role play. We also, I know all of us keep in mind like the still playing intelligently with like the characters but also role play focused. And I think also there is this almost like role play element to that. It's like, all right, they cannot specifically help you because they're so focused on what the overall goal is of being like hunting down magic. And so then kind of playing more like the attack dog, hunting dog type deal does fit with just the overall vibe. And it's like it's unlike, with Lonan and Folk, who is her Drake companion. This, and even in how the Drake Warden stuff is written, it's just like there's meant to be like a connection, an emotional connection between the Drake and the Drake Warden. With
Sure.
this, there is less of the emotional connection, which I think for how this is meant to be works.
Mhm.
With the Fey spirits that are your hunting hounds, you're not getting as much of the emotional connection because they're not necessarily there for that. Like, unlike, Beastmaster, or, and some people play a wildfire spirit more emotionally than others. Um, but I think it's very interesting to have a ranger subclass where it's like, yeah, your creature is, there's not necessarily supposed to be the emotional connection. And that's how I read it, at least. I might be reading too much into it, but but it's like, I think we can all agree that sometimes Wizards of the Coast has left rangers behind in the dust with their subclasses, and I think that's um why I'm actually very glad we're doing 2 ranger subclasses tonight, because we actually get to give them the love they deserve.
Absolutely.
Yes. Mm. Oh, and I don't know if it is on the ranger. Oh no, it is. Okay. I'm also have the ranger, like the official spell list up on one screen, so
Sure.
I'm
Yeah,
flipping
I think
between them.
sure. I don't think not all of them are on the ranger spell list. I
Yeah,
think
no.
detect magic is, but I don't know if
Detect
any of the
magic.
other ones are.
Let me check. Hold person. Uh, I don't believe is what level is it? Fifth. Because I was thinking of one, and I was wanting to make sure if it was on your, hold person is not on the ranger spell list.
Mhm.
Actually, it's very interesting because so the ranger spell list is very like limited just in
It is.
general. So even the spells that the ranger will then have access to are of a higher level than what most rangers have. Because rangers spell slots only go up to 5th level traditionally,
Mhm.
and
Right, so we have a detect magic at first level, hold person at second level spell, spell
mm-hmm.
magic at third level spell. I think
Okay,
counter spell is also third level spell, but it just worked too well. And then hold monster is fifth level.
yeah, okay. I can't always remember the exact levels for stuff.
No, I mean,
I think they're incrementally like
Yeah,
levels. Yeah. Because
and
they're
then also they're kind of with how powerful they can be used. It's like
mhm,
it still works there. Like, yeah, getting hold monster at 17th level for a 5th level spell. That still makes a lot of sense.
yeah. Like even if you aren't getting it till 17th level, so far away, um,
Hmm.
it's still nice. Still, it's still a spell that's nice to have.
Yes. I think it's one of those things where it's like, I believe statistically, most campaigns end with the people around, what, level 12?
I think that's about right.
Yeah.
Mhm,
And so there's always this kind of like, obviously it shouldn't be the goal, but always keeping in mind is like, all right, most people are going to play to this level.
mhm.
So keeping that at like in like the mind, and I think you did pretty well. Um, with just like, you get a lot of the trying to think of how to phrase it. I don't know what I'm thinking of. My brain is having a moment. I forgot what I was saying, so someone else say something.
I'm glad that you have the spell unravel ability before a lot of classes learn their 9th level spell. Because traditionally, I think it's 17 that most run
Yep.
like a 9th level. And I like the functionality of having it at 15. I think that in terms of rangers, they don't have anything at level 17. So
Nope, they don't get anything at level 17.
yeah.
I mean, the only thing they really get at level 17 is they get their 5th level spell slots.
Right, yeah. Pences
And
amongst the 9th level spellcasters. Yeah.
They get
Yeah,
one
yeah.
level spell slot, and then they get a second at 19. That's it.
Yeah.
Would you consider something like expending a spell slot to like unravel additional spells that are twice the level? Because in that case, only
Ooh,
your
that could
5th.
be interesting.
Because to keep them competitive, I know that this is beyond the scope of like normal class progression, but to keep you competitive, if at level 17 or maybe even at level 15 when you get the spell unravel feature, you can use it once and then you also can expend a spell to cancel something that's twice its level, because you won't have access to canceling 9th level spells until level 17 then. So it feels a lot more purposeful for something like a Magi Hunter.
That's actually kind of brilliant. I love that a lot, actually.
I can definitely see that, since being a Magi Hunter, they might not use spells really so often. Maybe just like small enhancement things, but if they use anything more than that, probably kind of go against what they're going for. If that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah, and I was trying to giving them some things they could spend their spell slots on to do, like they can spend a spell slot to do the shield reaction for their hounds.
That's what
So they
made
can
me
spend
think.
spend a spell slot to do the spell unravel. Yeah, I like that. I like that idea. I think that would be really cool.
There's still a large deficit though in rangers amongst the other classes. I'm trying to figure out. It mostly just comes down to like, you have a really good thing right now, and there's probably nooks and crannies where you could buff things. I don't necessarily think you need to nerf anything.
I will say this, because of Wizards of the Coast later basically acknowledged that they gave Rangers nothing. And so there's now a lot of where essentially you can mix and match abilities that came in, like for Rangers later. You could like, all right, instead of what was it called? Instead of primeval awareness, you get like primal awareness or like something similar. I don't remember the exact word.
Oh, the Tasha's ones?
Yes.
Yeah.
And I think you could almost do something similar with this subclass as well, of having a little bit of mix and match. Like you can either, going back to what we were talking about, the hounds earlier, is like you can either give them pack tactics at a level, or they get an AC of 15 and then boost to their dex and wisdom. It's almost a kind of letting there still be this customization based on, a lot of different storytelling reasons, or what the player would think is more useful. I think it's something that's a little technically a-traditional, but I think especially the Magi Hunter would is a very atraditional class or subclass,
Yeah.
I should say. And I think you could almost give it a little bit of like customization. Because there was one thing I was thinking of. Um, sorry, my brain is just like I have a thought and then it decides to run away. Um, I'm sorry. My
But you're
it's
fine.
not been a good day. Um,
You're totally fine.
yeah.
For an option, like what Saga was saying about like different choices for things, you could also like maybe augment the bite of the hounds so
Mm-hmm.
that it makes concentration checks made at disadvantage or something like that if a bite attack strikes.
Ooh.
Or even either do that or under like spellcaster's bane, instead of having advantage to recall information at a spell effects, you can use a reaction to um or like you can use your extra attack to impose disadvantage on concentration.
Hmm.
Because I think
Interesting.
that's a big thing with spellcasters that doesn't get really touched upon in here, is the fact that for spellcasters, concentration is a huge thing for certain spells,
Sure.
and it's not really touched upon in the fact that the spellcasters are very likely to be using spells with concentration, especially at higher levels. And
Yeah.
so being able to, I mean, maybe once or twice per short rest, maybe once per short rest, be able to use your extra attack to impose that disadvantage. I think it's one of those things that you have to keep in mind how to balance it,
Sure.
but it would definitely be useful in combat. And even if it is just for like the one turn or whatever,
Yeah.
being able to do that.
I mean, it might be interesting if we're gonna do that. Just have at some point the features that the hounds get. If a hound lands an attack, you have disadvantage on your concentration check.
I almost
Mm-hmm.
think that it should be inherent. I
Yeah.
mean, even
Yeah.
though it's third level, I feel like you can incrementally build it to the point where, I don't know, maybe your hounds could have like an anti magic aura.
Ooh, that would be good.
So thanks, Magaroltas. Bless up. But the idea that they, rather than just them being like two of a like pair, that maybe they have something innately that funnels back into this idea of like Magi Hunter.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And even though there is a slight worry with it, I also think that spellcasters get away with a lot in terms
Yes.
of their glass cannons, but they don't necessarily get to experience the worry of that a lot. If you have one character who's running three different things, that is an increased odds of making them sweat.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And
Well, I mean, and that what?
go ahead.
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
And I think a big part with Rangers too, besides, I think they were very specialized to certain areas before Tasha's.
Mm-hmm.
Their damage output hadn't really scaled super well to the later levels, especially. So give them other sorts of buffs, like with the hounds doing, special attacks or whatever it may
Yeah.
be, definitely can help out with that a lot. They're not necessarily doing damage, but they're doing a lot of other stuff to help output more damage or whatever it may be.
Or to level the
Or-
playing field, kind of going back to the disadvantage on concentration or the anti-magic field. It I think one of the things with Rangers, especially overall, is that they tend to lean more utility than like
Mhm.
straight like damage output and kind of playing more with that, especially with, if you're trying to think, sorry, like for the ranger themselves, they're going to be not in the midst of the battle unless once again they're a martial ranger, which once again, amazing, good for you, you're doing great, honey. But their wolves are going to be in the heat of the battle, because wolves are not ranged fighters, just so you know. And I think being able to level the playing field and almost be able to play with the fact that, all right, if the wolves that have the anti-magic field or, are imposing disadvantage on concentration with just their bites are like here and here, and then if you have like spellcasters on your party, which there are more likely going to be, they can also like almost having to think more about the environment in that way, especially like if they do get the anti-magic field. But also imagine how useful that would be to like a barbarian who's having to like run into the midst of battle. There's spells being slung everywhere, but if, their ranger friends, wolves, are also right there, they suddenly kind of have this buffer to keep them safe as well as other party members. And really leaning into rangers being utility focused rather than just damage output focused.
Sure. So, anti-magic feels an 8th level spell.
But that's functionally what Spell Unravel is. It's a once.
Yeah, it's a one-time thing. Yes. No, which is yes. Is a one-time thing. I think maybe having it being an innate thing might be a lot.
I think that the idea of when you're making this ranger subclass, are you building into the ranger's abilities or are you building into the hound's abilities? Because the idea of utility and it being put all the eggs into the basket of the hounds, so that even at the end of the day, if something happens to the hounds, the ranger still has like their base ranger abilities, but it fundamentally sets them apart, while still keeping them similar to others. I think that's what most subclasses struggle with is, oh, something happens. Do you still have your base stuff? No. Are you still running your subclass things on top of it? Does it get too, I guess, convoluted? And so I think you have a very clean like trajectory with it.
Yeah, and I think something that could help with the balance of that a little bit, since Anti-Magic Field is an 8th level spell, its radius is 10 feet. Each hound could, instead of having the 10-foot radius, only having a 5-foot radius. But if they're like right next to each other or something, it goes to a 10-foot radius. That way, you can really consider if you want to split them up or if it's worth having them together going after the same things.
I think if we wanted to do that, that would replace the 15th level ability. So instead of Spell Unravel, it would say for 1 minute or 10 minutes or whatever duration we want to say, your hounds have a 5-foot radius anti-magic field around them.
Or to kind of, if you do want to bring it down, is there's always the option of, if kind of going back to the hound being able to bite someone, if they're able to bite, then that can impose like an anti-magic field on the victim until like the end of their next turn or something. So then it's like it's not as long of a duration, and you're still kind of rolling the dice of will they be able to bite the person or not.
Yeah.
But I think that's also one of the things that I'm almost wondering if it would be good on the hounds, but it's almost like kind of like AJ was saying, then once the hounds, if they're taken down, all right, then that's one of this class's biggest things gone. And so it's almost like, do you want to do like two similar but lesser abilities that can be split between the wolves and the ranger, or put a really strong ability on the wolves and just be like, all right, fuck it, let's hope they survive the fight.
Yeah.
And I think especially kind of going back to the fact that the ranger themselves are going to be farther away from the fight than the wolves, so the wolves have a lot higher of a chance to go down. So in that case, I would give them a very strong ability to as kind of like, all right, we kind of also giving the other people in the midst of the fight something also to keep in mind. But I can
Mhm.
also understand wanting to balance two slightly smaller abilities between both. And I think that's also a question that needs to be analyzed.
It's a fine line to tread
It
with
real
it.
Yes.
balancing subclasses is really hard.
I
Yeah.
wonder, though,
Yeah.
if you're working at range and you're providing like cover fire for these hounds, like, does your role just become like sniping to make sure that the hounds survive?
Yeah.
Because if that is the function, then the ranger is working on the extra attack, all the things that they have available to them, and it's the hounds are the focus. So I guess the biggest question that's being presented is the ranger the fundamental focus or the hounds the fundamental focus? Because the
Yeah.
subclass ability is the hounds.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I wanted to give some sort of balance to it. Because, like
Yeah.
you were saying, because if the hounds die, you can't resummon them until you take a long rest.
Mm-hmm.
And so if all your abilities are there and
It
one of them
fucks you
dies or
over.
both of them die, then you're
Yeah.
just playing without a subclass.
And that's why I'm almost like over here, I don't know if that the it's why I was originally suggesting like using your extra attack to like impose disadvantage on concentration checks, because that kind of puts some of that power back into the ranger's hands versus the
Mhm.
wolves. But it's a lot weaker, which might not be a bad thing because you can introduce it a little bit sooner. And maybe it's like you have like so many times you can do it per like short rest or long rest or something. I feel like that's also
Yeah.
can be a way to making it something that has to be that has to like have a certain number of uses, maybe like equal to your wisdom modifier +1 or something.
Hmm.
Could also help. Because like, all right, so you have so many uses of this imposing disadvantage on concentration, if that's where you want to go with it. Whereas the wolves don't have that much of a limitation if they were to go in the direction of being able to impose, I don't even want to say like an entire like anti-magic field. I feel like that is it's trying to think. It's like it almost feels having both would be way too powerful. But
Mhm.
then it keeps going back to, well, the wolves might not survive the entire fight as much as the
Yeah.
ranger could.
Could you
Okay.
could you use spell slots to summon the wolves, and then different levels of spell slots have different abilities that you can give the wolves?
That would be
I
good.
I think that might be starting to walk crossing over the line of overcomplicating
Mm, that's
things.
fair.
If I'm writing 5 different stat blocks,
Yeah,
Mm. Well, then
that's fair.
I feel that the disruption to the concentration checks feels solid to be used at a lower level. That could be just an innate
Yeah.
thing that the hounds have at level 3. And then
Yeah, I think that honestly, I think that
Mhm.
would be fine.
because that will scale as time goes on.
Mhm.
The biggest worry is early game, the ranger not being powerful enough to defend the hounds, and that's the reason why they go out. Because regrettably, I think the majority of a party, along with this ranger, would probably not work to defend the hounds as fiercely
Yeah.
as the PC would.
Yeah.
Versus late game, where the hounds are doing all of this work, well, what does the ranger have for abilities? So,
Yeah. So yeah, so at level 3, each hound has between um between 10 and 14 HP. And an armor class of 13. We've been talking a lot about the hounds. Let's take a look at the stat block and see if that needs to be modified. Because the other thought I had was we've been kind of moving into this, moving a little bit more towards this thing of being able to spend spell slots to do things.
Mhm.
What if it's something? There's an ability, same kind of idea as like the Moon Druid, and you can spend a spell slot to heal your hounds a certain amount.
I like that. I think giving
Really
as
good.
many abilities as possible to expend spell slots,
Mhm.
since it seems kind of hypocritical to use them traditionally if you're hunting mages. That would very much function like casting mending to heal like an
Yeah.
automaton.
Mhm.
So I think that would be good.
Okay.
Or even.
So what
Oh, go ahead.
I was gonna say, so like what level should that be added? Should that just also go in at 3rd level?
I would say that one would go in at 3rd level, and if you did that, you could almost um
Maybe at 7th level then
Have the
yeah.
the
disrupting
hound should
bite.
disrupting bite. Okay.
That would
I think
make
that would be
sense because
fair.
it plays into the idea of like you have just built spellcasters into your a new favorite enemy, so therefore your
Mhm.
hounds are adapting, and maybe you run both kind
Oh,
of
yeah, I like
parallel.
that. Yeah, that does make sense.
And it feels like that's actually also a good balance overall, because it's like, all right, at like you already can heal them so you can keep them going in battle, and then
Hmm.
in the later point they've gotten a little bit more powerful, and that's almost also a representation of you're getting more powerful, and your bond with like your subclass and what you've trained to do is
Hmm.
also getting stronger.
Hmm. Okay. I think we've gotten some good things so far. I think adding the disrupting bite at 7th level, include that in. Um,
Mhm.
Work in the what is the what is actually the wording for behind the Moon Druid
uh
when they get that ability? Um. Okay, so you can spend a spell slot to regain 1d8 hit points per level of the spell slot expended. Do you think that's fair? Per level of spell slot expended, you can heal
D8.
1d8 hit points.
That's exactly the dice I would use because of cure wounds. Yeah.
Mhm.
Hmm. Yeah. Okay. That sounds good. And then add for the spell unravel at 15th level, um, add the text at the end about, or uh, you can spend a spell slot to unravel another spell up to twice the spell level that you expend. Okay. Um, I like all of that. I think that's very cool. Okay,
Mhm.
do we want to look at the actual stat block for the hounds and see if there's any modifications, nerfs, buffs need to happen there, changes?
So I've had the stat block up. I've been going back and referencing it. I don't know if I should be
Sure.
referencing the one in the Google Docs. Probably should. The only thing I would say that you don't even have to. It's because it's for a lot of like animals, whether they're summonable or not. There's always like at least one stat I feel like should be like at least in the like kind of like how a lot of people will build a character where it's like one of their player character stats will be like in the negative. I think you could almost give them like for their charisma be 8, so it's a -1 modifier, because it's like them having either entirely positive or neutral modifiers for all of their abilities, just like I feel like you could
Okay.
just it's one little change that I think kind of fixes just like why would these summonable Fey wolves have like an average charisma? That's
Can I build on that and also say that therefore they should have better mobility because their dex is so high, and they should have a 35-foot movement speed?
I could agree with that.
Okay.
So that way we're not
35.
just getting
Yeah.
rid of one thing but adding something else.
Right. So we think 8 charisma
I would say 8. The modifier would be -1.
-1.
I think it goes back to the logic of like, you know, having a creature that is really strong in a certain area and just like not weaker, but kind of like not as strong in another one.
hmm
And I think as AJ said, is like then giving them the 35 feet of movement is like that does help balance it out.
Yeah.
Because like if they're about mobility and as being able to almost be on the opposite side of the battle from the ranger, then
hmm
I feel like they should have like be a little bit faster than their ranger, which I think most rangers, which are elves, would have the 30-foot movement, correct?
Do you monk multi-class? Hey yo, now we're schmoovin'.
Well, actually, so going
Yeah,
because
rangers get some extra movement speed.
they do. It is one of the
Is it
things
based
I
on
know.
their natural explorer stuff?
It is. The
So it's one of the optional ones. If you take
Yeah,
Death Explorer at 6th level, you get an extra 5 feet to 35.
which is also what Lonan has, which is why she has 40-foot movement.
6th aligns with. Yeah, I mean, it's really good. That's the level right before you buff both the ranger and their hounds. So
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. I'm looking. I've pulled up some of these. I pulled up Drake Warden and Wildfire Druid and Battlesmith Artificer to look at the spell slot, the stat blocks they have for their summons. Um. Uh. So scaling wise, um, they're doing a lot of things using proficiency bonus.
yes, yeah.
They're doing like AC is 14 plus proficiency bonus. It damages a D8 or a d6 plus proficiency bonus. And it's the bonus to spell, or this is a 3 plus proficiency bonus to hit. So that scale that does do the scaling of things a little bit more smoothly. That changes some of the stuff which would maybe make some of the stuff at 11th level obsolete. Right? You changed the AC to being 12 plus your proficiency bonus, or 11 plus your proficiency bonus. And change your damage to being 1d6 plus your proficiency bonus piercing damage. That would make the damage and AC curve better. Also, it would take out the bonus to armor class and bonus to damage at 11th level. You could put in some of those other cool ideas for the hounds at that point instead.
I think the reason why I feel like I can say, especially with the Drake companion, uses proficiency bonus is because it takes a while. Let me double check because I think for any of the really cool stuff for the Drake to kick in. Whereas I feel like overall the hunting hounds feel a lot more like they're consistently getting stuff. It's like for Drake, when we pull that up really quickly here too.
Sure.
I feel like at least the damage on the bite being plus proficiency bonus.
Yeah.
Because it's not going to be anything higher than a +6. That's reasonable. And at 11, you should change the dice or like increase it to some degree.
Yeah, I think still I still think at 11th level, moving it from 1d6 to 2d6 could still be very reasonable.
Oh yeah.
Are you addressing the magical damage? Do you think that there would be an importance to that?
Addressing
like non-magical piercing attacks from the wolves.
That's already in there. At 11th level, I already have in their attacks are now also considered magical for the purposes of overcoming resistances.
Do you think you should get that earlier though?
It's a good question.
Maybe
I'm not sure when I would give it.
Maybe put it at 7th with Spellhunter's Bane. Because that would kind of fall into that flavor of Spellcaster's Bane. You know, they're able to bypass that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
I was also thinking that, kind of going back to was mentioned earlier, the Magrovda that we fought not that long ago, and that certain magical attacks did no damage on, or did like half damage or whatever.
It was all magic attacks did half damage.
Maybe maybe they have some sort of resistance to magic attacks.
I would put that at 11th though.
Yeah, that's what I would put at 11th. Be able to, I would say that if you wanted to do the proficiency bonus, I would say you could move their attacks are considered magical with Spellcaster's Bane, and then at 11th level bringing in the resistance to magical damage.
Yeah.
Or maybe 15th level would be better.
Yeah, I don't know.
Because then that kind of plays back into Spell Unravel of like, you're able to stop spells as they're happening, but your hunting hounds are resistant to them, which kind of also
Yeah.
plays together. And I do
Yeah.
like how
So
we're oh god.
no, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
Okay, I do like how we are, speaking of hunting hounds, um, we are kind of leaning towards spreading out the abilities and the strengthening of the hunting hounds, because before all of their features come in at 11th level, but
Yeah.
I think it would A, give you a lot more room to balance, and be more interesting to play with if their abilities came in increments.
Yeah. I think
Which,
so. I think yeah. Um, I am worried about the giving them resistance to magic damage.
mm-hmm,
Because at that high of a level, almost all damage at that point is magic damage.
fair.
And so just having your hound say resistance to all damage,
Or
let's see, is function.
maybe instead of resistance, when they take magical damage, there's a certain dice that they roll to reduce the damage. That way, there's still the chance they could take a crap ton of damage, or if it's just a little bit, they might ignore most of it, or even then, still just a small amount of it.
Or you could play back into the fact that you're meant to be hunting like dangerous magic casters, and it could be like resistance to necrotic damage as well.
Yeah,
Because in
more
that,
specific magical types.
yeah, be more specific, necrotic or radiant. Or if you want to especially focus on like, oh, you're meant to be fighting evil spellcasters, and that's the like evil spellcaster magic.
Could you also target? This would be unprecedented, but something like a concentration based spell, because it goes back to that idea of targeting concentration checks in order to disrupt these spellcasters. Could you make it so that they take resistance against any concentration spell?
Oh,
Be used to force
that's
the DM to remember their casters have concentration spells up.
Or even
that's
maybe like advantage against spell saves or something along those lines could
Mm-hmm.
be useful too.
that I
Especially
might
for
feel
the
more
hounds, since they're going to be the ones mostly then targeted by those spells more than likely. Except what
I might be
other
a lot more
PCs might be up the line,
Mm-hmm.
I think I might be a lot more comfortable doing this, like the magic resistance that you have
Yeah.
advantage against saving throws against spells. I think that would make sense.
Mm-hmm.
I think if we're replacing some of the abilities at 11th level, that's definitely something we could put there.
Yeah.
Um, at 11th level, we're removing the change to AC, right? Because that's just going to be worked in with bonus to proficiency bonus.
Yeah.
Um, and we're going to keep that they are going to be doing 2d6 damage instead of 1d6 damage.
2d6
Um,
plus PB.
Yeah.
plus PB, yeah.
It feels right for them
Um,
to have. It feels right for them to have the magical attacks at 7th rather than 11th.
Yeah.
okay. We're going to put that at 7th.
Especially considering at that point, most campaigns are you're moving into where almost all of your enemies are going to be like if not immune, at least resistant to non-magical damage. That's at the point where most players are going to have at least one magic item if they didn't start with one that can be used for combat. And so that would kind of
Yeah.
also make sense. It would go back to, well, what are most of the party going to have? Hello, buddy. I know. I wish you guys could see his face right now with how he's looking up at me.
So at 7th level, they're going to
Their attacks are magical.
attacks are magical.
Mm-hmm. Level was the one we were talking about having advantage against saving throws from spells.
Yeah. Okay. And then put it in at 11th level. The magic resistance. Yes.
On the notes that I have 2 rows specifically trying to track what's for the ranger, what's for the hounds. But I also think that it's nice that sometimes it's either the ranger is getting most of it or the hounds are getting most of it.
Yeah.
Because you don't just want to have like one thing and one thing, one thing and one thing. So I think that this is nice.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Okay, my next question is about their plus to hit. So right now I have it's a just a flat +3 to hit, and then that moves up to a flat +5 to hit. Should that also be tied into efficiency bonuses? Do we think?
You could do. That wouldn't work as well. Well, so for the bite, that's traditionally for um creatures. It's like strength, right?
Spell attack modifier.
You could do spell attack modifier.
Actually, good. That was better than what I was thinking.
Only because that's what my Firebird uses for Zedri, so something
So
that's also incremental.
Uses, and that's also what battlesmiths use.
Yeah, and with the Drake companion, thereby it's the strength modifier plus proficiency bonus to hit.
Dang, that's kind of nasty.
That is.
Yeah,
We have to remember
that's
we're splitting this in half, right, into two separate boys.
Yeah, so I think just the one would be fine.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think spell attack modifier would be fine, which is interesting because it actually encourages that and the spell save DC later really actually encourages a ranger doing a magi hunter to actually have a high wisdom, try to have a really high wisdom on top of whatever their dex or strength or whatever they're using for combat too.
I feel like even though the player's handbook is like, oh, make sure they have a high wisdom for like their spells and stuff, most people, I mean, they tend to, but it's like it's never as much of a focus. And to make a subclass, it's like, no, you want to make sure you have a high wisdom because that will play into your success, truly play into your success later on. That'd be good. Because like, yeah, Drake Wardens have, besides spells, having a high wisdom doesn't, your wisdom score doesn't really come into play. And so I think that would, honestly, because it would play back into also spellcasters, It's like if you're supposed to be going after them, you almost want to be equally matched with with the creatures you're fighting,
Yeah.
people you're fighting.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, so I want to add because I really liked it. I like how for which one is it? The Spellcaster's Bane. You do not gain an additional language from this ability like you would normally from a favorite enemy, because as hilarious as I think it is ridiculous that rangers end up knowing so many languages.
Yeah.
Like, it is
Well, and I think
downright ridiculous.
yes, and I think it makes sense uh because spellcasting isn't a race. It's it's
Yeah. No, it absolutely
it's an
makes
ability you
sense.
get.
It makes sense. And as I'm also saying this because sometimes it does not make sense for the ranger to know as many languages as they do. So I think there's also kind of it's one of those things where like I'm glad that this is here because it makes me feel justified in
Yeah.
rangers not needing as many languages as they do. As much as I think it's funny that right now our rangers, but the only one who knows draconic and giant,
Is you.
yeah, is the ranger. And it's just because like
Yeah.
I'm technically missing a language. I need to add another language to my list. Because I can't think of the only other one I can think of is Infernal, but we have two people in the party who can already speak Infernal.
Yeah.
But it's like between having Ranger, Ranger, my subclass gives me a free language,
Yep.
Outlander background, and then Vampire race. I have like 6 languages I can know, 6 or 7.
What an icon.
I know. She's a multilingual queen, I guess. Um, but I do actually want to ask because, we're talking
Mhm.
about a subclass here, and this goes like out to you guys. Is if you were playing this as a subclass, and some of the other features that like play into being ranger, both the ones from PHB plus the ones from Tasha's. My thing is, what would you guys choose as like your other favorite enemies? Because I
Hmm.
feel like that's always something that I personally get stuck on when trying to figure out for rangers. But I think it does definitely like depend on your subclass. And is like,
It also depends on the world. I mean, if I'm
yeah.
playing like
Yeah.
classic, like Forgotten Realms or something,
Mm-hmm.
giants, because they have so much like runic script that channels their magics. So that
Mhm.
would make sense to
I
learn.
mean,
My
I
first
think
thought,
Faye.
that was where I was going too, is
Mhm.
because so often Fae are kind of depicted as being very strongly associated with magic and also being tricksters. And I
Mhm.
think that could almost like a fairy circle gone wrong could almost be the reason why someone becomes a magi hunter.
Yeah. I think Celestials and
Mhm.
Fiends are also both good options.
Yeah. I think you would definitely, oh, especially like if you think of like fiends as in like the like imps and stuff that a lot of spellcasters would have as like a familiar,
Hmm.
that could definitely play into it is like to why would your character know so much about this. I think that's
Yeah.
also the big thing of like why, and it obviously, like AJ said, it depends upon the world, it depends on the character, but kind of trying to think of like an outline of like all right, if you took this subclass, obviously we're all going to do something different because we all have different ideas, but where would you want to kind of take those ideas? And I think that's also something that, when just building a subclass in general, I would say try to have people like, all right, what type of character would you play? Because it kind of gives you an idea of where to like smooth out the edges for some of the abilities.
I don't know, Saga, if you were playing, if if uh
Mm-hmm.
if Lonin was a Magi Hunter instead of a Drake Warden, what do you think she would do?
So it wouldn't be Lonan. I have to go ahead and say that it would be a different character.
Or
I don't know if you remember, if you guys have ever seen Critical Role Campaign 1, but Vex, I think, would have been a great Magi Hunter. Favorite enemies probably dragons, because that's already part of the story, and
yeah,
Fae. Dragons are spellcasters. They do cast
yeah,
magic.
mm-hmm,
Um, and it would play back into Vex's backstory of her hometown was attacked by a dragon, and that's what ultimately orphaned her and her brother. So we're going with half elf, which, I mean, so the main race for druids and rangers are elves, half elves. Um, I would almost also do it as like maybe someone based more in the city versus a like true like outdoorsman's ranger. I think it's one of the backgrounds like bounty hunter, of doing someone who's more of a bounty hunter, more used to urban environments, because
mm-hmm,
magic gone wrong in like a city can cause a lot more damage.
Arbor.
mm-hmm,
Mm-hmm.
It's funny
yeah.
that you mentioned that because I had actually played a Gloomstalker that I played as a bounty hunter from a city.
Yeah.
So that was actually really fun too. So
And I think you could either go in the direction of someone a ranger, very urban based, going with that bounty hunter idea, or you could go almost in the opposite direction and do like a almost hermit ranger, magi hunter ranger,
Mm-hmm.
whereas maybe they themselves aren't necessarily like a hermit, quote unquote, but they're so like um they're so fanatical against magic that they like actively go and like hunt hags or something. They're essentially a witch hunter.
Yeah,
Um, they're also going in that direction. But also, this would be a great ranger subclass against hags.
yeah.
I feel like, I know they're not traditionally on the like favorite enemies list, but I think for this one they would have to be, because that's just like it's too perfect.
Well, I mean, hags are just Fae.
Hags are
Take Fae
fae,
as your
yeah,
favorite enemy.
fair enough. But I think for this one it would be, you would have like a fair many options, and it would, like I said, it would definitely depend on the character you want to play. But for this one specifically, if I were creating a character for this backstory, for this subclass, it would be a bounty hunter type individual, someone who has seen the harm that like these powerful wizards and their like ivory towers can cause, and wanting to put a stop to it.
Mm-hmm.
I think the fact that it's very obvious there's so many directions you can go with this, I think it's like you have your options.
Yeah.
I have a cat who is digging his claws into my kneecap.
Do you have any other questions, Conrad, that we can try to help you with?
Sure. All right, let's do a quick recap.
Okay.
Um, so third level, we're getting our getting the hunting hounds. Uh, okay. So do we think the starting armor class should be 13 or 14? Should be 11 plus
13.
proficiency bonus or 12 plus proficiency bonus to start.
What's their
I think
dex
11.
modifier?
Oh, that's the +3 is for dex
+3.
modifier. I think 11 plus proficiency bonus, because that's also what most characters are gonna have.
Yeah, I think that'd be pretty fair.
Okay. Awesome. Okay. You're getting you get your hunting hounds at 3rd level. Use your bonus action to command them during combat. And a long rest, you can resummon them. Armor class is 11 plus a proficiency bonus. Hit points is 3 times your level in this class plus your wisdom modifier. Speed is 15 feet. Mr. 15, 35 feet. They have the keen hearing and smell. Same. Change their bite to be 1d6 plus proficiency bonus damage, and your spell modifier to hit. And we didn't do anything. We didn't change protective instinct, and then we're going to add. We think bonus action. It costs your bonus action to heal them, or do you think we have it be your action to heal them?
I would say bonus action, because also you could use bonus action to command them. So I would
So
say
you can either
heal
have
or
them attack or you can heal them.
Yeah,
Okay.
because if
Yeah,
you
well,
don't
and that's why.
command them, they take dodge.
Yes, and so that's why it was the on the flip side of maybe you have it be an action, so you can still, as a bonus action, have them attack. I don't think it would feel less bad if it was a bonus action to heal them.
Yeah, I think bonus action to heal, because it's like, then you still get your attack. You don't have to
That's
choose
true.
between, like,
It would be kind of like commanding them to heal, essentially.
yeah, that's where I was going. Because then,
Okay. No, that's fair.
like I said, is they're naturally going to be taking dodge on their action, which is also going to help in the long run, because then they're not going to get hurt that turn either. Ideally.
Hopefully.
Hopefully.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So bonus action, you can expend a spell slot to heal them. 1d8 per spell slot expended. Okay. 7th level is the same, except we've added their hound's attacks are now magical for the purposes of overcoming resistances. Do we also add? We had talked about. Do we think we still add the hounds impose disadvantage on concentration checks?
I think that would still be a good thing to have. But I think we did discuss that coming in as a later ability. Or was that coming in
Yeah.
at...
So
That was 7th that we
we
were
did.
pushing
Yeah.
it to.
We had discussed putting it at 7th level.
Yeah.
Now but then we also moved the magical for purpose of overcoming resistances. Do we think we should also put that in at 7th level?
I think disrupting bite, and I think, or the disadvantage on concentration checks, and I think the attack's considered magical at 7th level. I think 11th level should be the advantage on spell saves, in order for it to
Yes, I have that.
comprehensively be the idea of like resistance to things, but then also offensively addressing those things.
And I don't.
Okay, so we're all
Giving them the ability to impose disadvantage on con saves, I don't know if that would be super useful, considering they can just bite and break the concentration.
That is the other
Or
option,
there's
is
a
you can
chance of
have
it.
them immediately. Well, no, that's inherent.
so they bite. Yeah, they bite, and so as then you roll your concentration check. If the hound bit you, you roll that concentration check at disadvantage. Would be the disrupting bite.
Yeah.
you could almost have it be a separate attack. You could either do bite, which does the 1d6, then later 2d6 plus proficiency bonus piercing, and then disrupting bite could be like
More like a distraction kind of thing instead of an actual damaging bite.
Yeah.
I was gonna
kind of-
say could do
so
like
the
1d4 damage, then also have the disrupting concentration.
Yeah, so they're more
Would that
trying
be
to
too
break your
weak?
concentration than actually hurt you at that point, but they're still gonna hurt a little bit. Yeah, that makes
well,
sense.
so the question is, is that too powerful an ability to have inherently?
Well,
It needs to be categorized as a separate thing.
I think that built into the fact that you are imposing disadvantage on the concentration checks is the goal is to bite them so that they have disadvantage on the concentration check that they are going to make. If you make it 1d4, they're going to be going against 10 every time. Whereas if you keep the damage and then you scale it up, rather than having a totally separate damage that might scale up later, who knows? By having a damage that increases, it increases the odds that you will have somebody fail a concentration check against the damage you're rolling. Even 2d6 isn't that high, but plus your proficiency bonus, I mean, 12 plus 6.
Decent,
Yeah.
We gotta stop listening to our inner Wizard of the Coast that's telling us to nerf this thing.
I think that their bite should inherently have that starting at 7th level.
Okay. So now at 11th level, hounds grow. Hounds bite attacks now do 2d6 plus proficiency bonus piercing damage. Hounds have advantage on saving throws against spells and other magical effects. Hounds can now use their protective instinct ability twice per long rest. Okay. And then at 15th level, have the same thing. We're adding on this ability can be used once per long rest, or cannot be used until you take a long rest or until you expend a spell slot.
Yeah.
And then you can spend the spell slot you expend can unravel a spell up to twice its level.
Yeah. I will also throw this out there. It's about the wolf, because I double checked the wolf, their basic rules wolf stat block, and they naturally have 40 feet of movement if you did want to increase the hound's movement a little bit more.
I'm all for more movement.
Just to match it, or if you want to keep it at 35 with the idea that it's not always going to be a wolf. That one, it's not necessarily like a big thing. It's just like I did notice that, and I was like, we could be just consistent. Or like I said, coyotes are smaller than wolves, so if you did summon a coyote, it would make sense for it to be a little slower than a wolf. So
yeah, I will leave this up to the peanut gallery. Do we think 35 feet of movement speed or 40 feet of movement speed?
When you say that, are you talking to the other people here, or are you referencing the folks we have in chat?
I was talking to trying to get the people in chat to chime in, but also you guys here.
Jeff, what are your thoughts?
I think sticking to the 35 is fine because it might be something else that's not as nimble.
Yeah.
It's a slight boost, but it lessens something that has crazy movement speed. If you're power gaming your hounds, sure. I mean,
you still have two of them either way.
Yeah.
So you're able to move them around.
You ruined my fantasy of running Cerberus as my familiar. I'm so mad, Conrad. It's only 2? Ugh, damn it.
That just means you can have a turtle that goes 35 feet.
Please, yes. Please, yes. Sick the hounds on them.
And it's just snapping turtles. Yep.
Tortoise. Snapping tortoise.
They just levitate. They just float around like air hockey pucks. Slightly levitating.
I don't know if that's scarier or the image of a turtle running at you at that speed.
You're not even on all fours. It's just on the 2 and just running.
Yep.
equestrian turtles.
Okay. Well, I think we timed that pretty perfectly for our first break.
Indeed.
Yeah.
It is 8:03. So, do we want to go ahead and do a 10 and we'll be back 13 past the hour?
Okay.
Cool.
Come back in just a few minutes for the Spell Fletcher, our second subclass.
Yep. We're going to be looking at that one. But we will see everybody in 10 minutes and we'll leave you with these cool tunes.
Do you want to be
feel free to ask. Yep, we are hunting hounds. Yeah, feel free to chime in the chat, ask questions. Someone will be around.
That was good. It was a really good
fun.
subclass.
Thank you. It was some really good insights that I don't think I ever would have thought of on my own.
And that's what we're here for.
I actually first came up with the idea for this subclass before Drake Warden came out, before Fizz bans. So I was like, I want to give them I want to give Rangers a cool subclass that actually gets powerful summons that they can use.
Well, it's because Drake Warden, it's what the like, what is it? The two neighbors, the two subclasses for Ranger that are just considered like the best are Drake Warden and Gloomstalker. Swarm Keeper is often also considered up there. It's pretty good. But it's like all of the other ones, like Horizon Walker, is so specific.
It's so cool.
It is so cool. I agree with you. It is super cool, but it is also so specific. Fey Wanderer is also really good.
Yeah. But to be fair, this subclass is also pretty specific.
It is also very specific. I feel like Go ahead.
No, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
It's like one of the things that, like with Horizon Walker, which, like I say, is really cool, but it's the Detect Portal, where you can sense the closest planar portal within 1 mile. It's like that one is so utterly like, it almost feels like so specific it's limiting. Whereas this one is like, yes, very specific, but there's so many things you can do within it. But I guess also, we're going into a time where like multiverse and like other dimensions is very big in media. So Horizon Walker does make a lot of sense. But it's almost like, I don't know if you know anything about AJ and I's Thursday group, but right now we're in like a multiverse type situation where Horizon Walker would make sense, but there's plenty of other magical abilities that we have, a lot of them being homebrew, that kind of almost make it obsolete. Like, AJ, what's Endern's planar sensing ability called again? I can't remember off the top of my head.
Pretty sure it's literally that subclass. Like, practically. He's a sorcerer, but he has...
Yeah, but isn't it his, like, portal sensing is a lot... Yeah.
Sense Rift?
Yeah, Rift Sense.
There you go, yeah.
But it's like, he can, like, even outside of being a mile away from a rift, he can sense its general direction, right?
And like the time dilation, too.
Yeah. Which, like, to be fair, that is very specific to the game we're playing on Thursday. But yeah. It's like...
But Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, it's just Rangers have gotten the short end of the stick for so fucking long.
Yeah. No, but like this one is still a little bit limited. You probably would not want to play this subclass. You probably wouldn't want to play a Magi Bane in a low magic campaign.
That's also true. But also
Like
the
you,
roleplay opportunities with having a Magi Hunter and a Wizard in the same party.
yep. Oh, a little like blurb at the beginning isn't like they're fully anti-magic, right? They have their own magic,
Yeah.
right? They just want to get rid of any excessive or harmful magic in the world. So unless the wizard's going out and committing war crimes, hopefully they'll be able to find some sort of understanding.
I heard just the last bit of that, and it kind of reminds me of the Watcher Paladin subclass, because they're like defenders of the world against otherworldly magics and things.
Mm-hmm.
So it doesn't even necessarily force you to be anti-magic. So I can be against certain magical things or things that use magic in the wrong way.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Or you could play them as a person who just hates magic. That could be some cool roleplay things.
Mm-hmm. I think there's a lot of directions you can take it. Um, but I also had the thought of Magi Hunter Ranger against Wild Magic Sorcerer, or just like that roleplay opportunity where they literally cannot necessarily control their magic. And it's like that would be very interesting.
That that would be a cool dichotomy.
Mm-hmm.
I think that would be the exact antithesis of of the Magi Hunter Ranger. Would be a wild magic sorcerer.
Well, I know we're back a little early. Does everybody want
Actually,
the few minutes? There we go. Yeah.
yeah, I'm gonna go really
You're good.
quickly.
3 minutes, you got it.
Yeah. I'm also going to do that.
Jeff, it is great to have you back on stream, by the way. Even if it's
Yeah,
Verelia's Cauldron.
It's good to be back.
Do you see any of the tribes from Torsland being these Magi hunters? Since magic isn't a big thing in Torsland.
Can you still hear me?
Yes, I can still hear you.
Okay, because my computer's froze up, so let me restart it real quick. I'll get back to you.
I came back to chaos.
We've actually been doing really good. Knock on wood. But There we go. Seamless.
That hasn't actually happened in a while.
I know. And we don't even have Fantasy Grounds open.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I think it might be something with Discord and streaming video or something, but I've replaced almost everything on my computer, so it either motherboard, power supply. Oh no, I've replaced power supply, so motherboard is the only thing I haven't replaced, or something with some driver that might have not been updated for a while. Strange, but it is what it is. We deal with it.
Everybody ready? All right. Go ahead and bring us back. Hello. Cool.
Hello, hello.
So, it's time for us to go over the second subclass of the evening, which is the Spell Fletcher. Spell Fletcher is one thing building upon the utility that we talked about Rangers kind of innately having. And then also it's kind of a slight answer to the fact that Arcane Archer is a fighter subclass. It's very heavily kind of tailored to a specific magic system as well. So, of course, there's some alterations that might need to be made narratively when it comes down to it. But we'll go ahead and start off with the spell list. So, kind of an incremental shift, starting off with Magic Missile, very functional and easy hit, as I think all Rangers should have it. But anyways, Acid Arrow at 5th level, kind of building upon the ideas of magical arrows. And then we get into more of the heavier imbuement options. So 9th level is Magical Weapon, which is 3rd level spell. 13th is the 4th level spell Elemental Bane. And then 17th is the 5th level spell Holy Weapon, which is very limited in who has access to it. But in terms of augmentation, it's one of the most powerful spells for that in the range 5 category. The entire class kind of centers around the element of these arcane fletches. So you start off and you actually enhance the fletching on your arrows. So you are functionally turning non-magical ammo into something magical with a specific effect to it. A lot of them are kind of coalesced, kind of magical energies that hit into something. Some of them have other functions as well, though, and some of them are also locked behind prerequisites of later levels as well, similar to something that you might see in Blood Hunter, or the way that Warlock runs specific things invocations off of which kind of pact you chose. So they all build off of your wisdom bonus. So you're allowed to craft that many arcane fletches based on your wisdom bonus. And I was looking at maybe enhancing that, so I'll flag a few things as we go through. You learn 2 to start off at 3rd. Then they increase incrementally 7th, 11th, and 15th. And I'll kind of move back into those. But there's a fire one, there's an ice one, there's a lightning one, and then there's the more magical disrupting, and also the kind of resonant fletch, which is the one that hurts and the one that heals simultaneously. So you can imagine what spell that might be kind of echoing. At 5th level...
Oh, I wonder.
At 5th level, to keep the class on par with some of the others, in addition to extra attack, this ranger would also have access to using a reaction to channel their hunter's mark into their arrows, so rather than a bonus action. And then you can also add a d6 to the damage type on that. 7th level would be critical hits with these spell-infused arrows, which I was very specific on the wording of that for a reason, allow you to roll 1 additional damage die for the spell's damage. So that's why things are kind of split across 5 and 7. At 11, there is a more diverse array of ammo that you can enhance. So any non-magical ammo type you can imbue with an arcane fletch, whether it has feather fletching or not, including that of others. So you can actually start enhancing other people's ammo as well. At 11th, you can go ahead and consume spell slots on a range of levels from 1 to 3, such as the traditional kind of magical enhancements to Masterworks, and you give yourself an equal bonus to your non-magical ammo, functionally making it a range of 1 to 3 magical ammo. And you also ward that piece of ammo from breaking. So the fortification lasts a number of hours equal to your proficiency bonus, and then it breaks from the strain, whether you're in combat or not. 15th, for the kind of a big capstone, you're looking at all different kinds of ammos with specific regards to ranged ammo. So any non-magical weapon type, yes, that means you can imbue your paladin sword if for some reason at level 15 they don't have a magical one already, in addition to any level of magical ammo. So you can boost up on top of that with an arcane fletch, including that of others.
I'm gonna build this with a slingshot.
Hey, that's honest. Oh my gosh. This reignited my passion for ranged weaponry, because oh my gosh, it's so fun, y'all.
Yeah.
It's so good.
It is.
But
It's something that honestly should have been around for a while anyways.
yeah.
Why do you guys think my 2 characters I'm playing right now both have a focus on ranged weaponry?
There you go.
Yeah.
And so the main questions that I have are the fine printing of things and then more arcane fletch options. But I built this to specifically synergize with the arrows that we discussed last session. The idea of a spell imbued arrow or a magic spell infused arrow, that being maybe the arrows that you purchase as well, and maybe a crafting mechanic that goes along with that. That's probably a can of worms for next time, but you'll notice that a lot of these abilities will say like a spell infused arrow or a spell infused arrow of your own make, or like this specific spell infused arrow. So I tried to watch wording there, but
And I think with the spell infused arrows, I think that would be a great idea. Especially if you implemented like different arrow crafting out of different materials. Like certain materials handle certain spell levels. Like maybe just your normal arrow that you buy from, you know, the ordinary fletcher, or maybe one that you're making out in the wilderness by yourself, can handle up to like just a first level spell. And then, you know, more specially crafted ones with better materials can, you know, higher level spells.
I like that.
Yeah. So I have a couple of things.
Roast me over a spit. That's what we're here for. Feedback is love.
No, so the main thing is, so we'll start with the smaller thing, holy weapon, which
One of mine.
I think is very cool, but lore-wise, why is the ranger getting a hold of I think it's a cleric exclusive skill?
Yeah.
Spell, I mean?
It's cleric exclusive. I think that
and normally,
oh, you got
like normally I don't have a problem with that. Like that's very like a very normal thing. It's like even if it's only on the wizard spell list, no, whatever. I mean, this is very much like very much connected to like a god. Holy weapon.
So
So,
there's
I'm not sure
definitely
about that.
spells that is like, because I get what you're trying to go with, like using holy weapon, but I think there's definitely, and I'm also just like looking through the list as we're talking about it, but I think there's definitely something that might work better in that spot, because kind of like Conrad is saying, as cool as giving your ranger holy weapon is, it's like, it's one of those things that it feels very out of place. And I can understand wanting to do like something akin to holy weapon, but it might it doesn't feel like it fits what the ranger is like. If you were to play a ranger with no like backstory, just to play it as a being as technical as you want, its holy weapon doesn't fit. And I think there's one that I was thinking of. It's not the right. This one isn't the right one, but I think it's on the kind of idea. It's also a cleric spell. It's 6th level. I think there's a better spell for it, but Blade Barrier. Once again, not quite the right one, but the idea of instead of it being able to do an attack, being able to guard and put up that kind of protection around yourself or others. Because it's like, if you think about archers throughout history, the archers were always like the ones that were covering for those who were on the front line. And so kind of playing into that of having your ranger be able to cover not only with an attack, but also with a kind of protection spell. Ow. Sorry.
I was thinking... oh, sorry.
It's okay.
I was thinking more along the lines of your 15th level ability, which is very, like, I love so much.
Yes.
You basically fletching a weapon instead of an arrow. So the weapon for whatever time period, you're getting the effect on every shot, which I think is cool. So you're already kind of getting that instead of holy weapon. You're going to be spell fletching a weapon to give it bonus damage and bonus effects. So maybe we could find a different 5th level spell.
There was one other spell that I was looking at, which kind of shifts slightly away from the realm of enhancing weaponry, but I think it could still work in terms of like height of craft, which would be skill empowerment.
I might need to look that one up.
Yeah, that's one I was actually just looking at a second ago too.
Yeah. The difficulty arises in not using any of the spells that a ranger has access to, and then finding one that is about enhancing weaponry, which I think in terms of like roleplay, and this is the difficulty, because whenever I craft stuff, I always come at it from a roleplay perspective, which we all know that the big boys don't do that. So the idea behind that would be like, what are you searching for, and how are you deepening your understanding of things? And the blessings that someone like a paladin might have would very much make sense. But in this specific like sense with Witternacht, unless it's specifically caveated with Datus, I think there would be or Inverness, I think there would be a real difficulty with like aligning it there. The nature of the Pantheon kind of limits that. But in terms of a weapon enhancing spell, that's what there is. I do like blade barrier, but
yeah, there's also Wall of Force.
It's 6th level.
Yeah, anything outside of 5th level.
There's also one that is 5th level is Wall of Force, which.
What if? I don't know. What if to go along with like more creation part of the things too? There is the creation spell.
Yeah. Oh.
The only thing is there's a duration for the materials that you create.
Right.
So maybe at that level, when you get that spell, you could add a caveat with one of the abilities that you gain, essentially saying, I don't know. Because I understand why they have the duration on the materials too, because you can create adamantine. So maybe you could have like a Swift Fletch ability to like quickly modify an arrow with whatever material you're creating from that kind of thing. I don't know.
Maybe, or maybe what's the spell that lets you just like make stuff out of materials? Can't remember the name now.
Mm.
Um,
Animate object? No.
no, it would be.
Fabricate.
Yes. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Fabricate is 4th level,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
but you basically can instantly change raw materials into or yeah, fabricate things and instantly into being. You have the raw materials there.
So maybe as a little bit of a trade-off, instead of the subclass getting an extra 5th level spell from the subclass, it'll get the 4th level spell Fabricate and another maybe a level 2 or something level spell from another. Would also give a little bit more option to have something else that might have caught your eye before or something. I don't know. Because Fabricate does seem pretty
No, it's very
cool
on
as well.
par
Yeah.
in terms of like forging things. And it also. Oh, you go, Saga.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
I was gonna say the thing that I noticed the most in crafting this was how closely it dances with Artificer, and making sure that
Yes.
it felt separated from. So I
Yes.
did try to particularly choose spells that are either
More
pretty
enhancement.
pretty non-traditional that most artificers wouldn't just pick up off the cuff, or like pure enhancement. I mean, enhanceability would be great, something like that, but I'm pretty sure
was gonna enhanceability is, I think,
on the ranger
already-
list.
Yeah. Let me double check before I
It isn't, but
it isn't.
no.
I think because with the spell Fletcher, it is 2 parts. It is very combat and also creation focused. So there's this like idea of like creating your weaponry. Sorry.
Bless you.
But kind of going back to, so if you're playing a spell Fletcher, obviously you're kind of stuck into mostly being a ranged ranger, which is how most people play it. Almost if you want to kind of go in a different direction from either, I would say Fabricate would probably be a good one for one of the other levels. Maybe add it as like wait, what level was Fabricate? What spell level is that?
4th
level.
4th
Fourth?
level.
Maybe put that when you can do magic weapon and Fabricate, because they're very different.
Well,
it'll be Elemental Bane.
There's no
Elemental, sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No, you're fine.
You're fine.
Elemental Bane and Fabricate, and at the getting Far Step at 17th level, which you can teleport up to 60 feet to an unoccupied space you can see. On each of your turns before the spell ends, you can use a bonus action to teleport in this way again. And then that goes back to what we were talking about earlier, in like being able to kind of having that distance from the battlefield while still being able to do a lot attack wise. But instead of necessarily enhancing the weapon or enhancing creation of weapons, it's enhancing your capability on the battlefield. And then putting, like they said, Fabricate, I would say alongside Elemental Bane, because they're so different. that they could both be utilized.
Yeah, it's pretty traditional for all rangers that they just have the one
The one, yeah.
at each of those levels. They just get one.
Yeah.
I
spell.
mean, I could put something like Swift Quiver. I looked at the actual ranger spells because the functionality of it is, yes, you're supposed to have spells that you might not have access to otherwise, but there are rare occasions with subclasses where it is a spell that you already would have access to, but it doesn't count against your prepared spells. Because Swift Quiver, 5th level, is the epitome of this subclass. But I was trying to look for something apart from if there was the possibility of, although there is normally that traditional one spell, if Swift Quiver is already something that there's access to, then putting that. If not, Far Step is a very tactical use of the battlefield, which I appreciate.
Yeah.
I mean, even with the skill empowerment, that could be still a good one, because you obviously know arrows, you know archery. You're just quickly passing on like a tip to someone else, like, hey, use this bow, grab this arrow, do this and this kind of thing. You're gonna hit.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
You're just passing on a little quick knowledge that they'll probably forget, but
Yeah. But I think also I see what you mean of like going back to utility focus, not necessarily just fighting focus.
Yeah, I mean, I think whatever we choose to do, it should just be
the one. Yeah.
The one.
What do you feel like the 4th level spell is better off being Fabricate over Elemental Bane?
I think either would be fine.
Yeah,
I think both work really well.
Okay.
And I know this one wouldn't be normal, but you could almost do a Elemental Bane or Fabricate. I think that's kind of going back to the nature of homebrew is you can kind of be a little different than what is normally done.
Yeah, I think either one would be really useful. So maybe adding that or that spell could be a good.
I mean,
addition.
If we really think that that's what we want, both of those, like when I was doing mine, we were doing Magi Bane, when we were doing theirs, they don't get a 4th level spell; they get 2 3rd levels, right? They got Dispel Magic and then Counterspell. So maybe they don't get a 5th level spell always prepared. Maybe they get Elemental Bane and then they get Fabricate.
Because the 17th level is when they would get their 5th level. Yeah.
5th level spells, yeah.
Yeah. And spell lists are always difficult.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I would think maybe just give the option to the player between an Elemental Bane or Fabricate, depending on what kind of Fletcher they want to go with. If they're a more crafting or a more magical enhancing one. Because, I mean, obviously they're going to have to craft arrows, which would be a lot easier with Fabricate, but they could also just sit and take the time. Maybe there's an artificer in the party, someone that knows woodworking real well. So I guess it really depends on the party and the player themselves. So I think given the option wouldn't be a bad idea.
I think we have to do an or for every single level at that point. I don't think we can just have one that weirdly has 2 things in it.
I don't necessarily think so. It's like there's always, even you going through official material, there's always not always, but there's sometimes one that has its little standout thing or thing that's a little different. And I think that, especially going back to, this is a subclass that is, at first glance, it seems like quite simple, but it kind of goes back into how do you want to play this character. And I think having one, especially like down the line, that is like, you can do Elemental Bane or Fabricate. Or, as Jeff said, I would reverse the order and do Elemental Bane to get it at 17th level and do Fabricate at 13th. Do the 2 4th level spells.
Yeah.
So
I mean, it
I think it's the 5th level spell that we're all getting really hung up on, trying to figure out what goes when we have
Because it's
an extra
hard.
fourth.
Because it's
Yeah,
I mean,
hard.
no.
obviously,
Yeah.
obviously, Swift Quiver would be a very useful spell. I mean, any ranger would take that anyway. Giving it to him would be not a bad idea, but I mean, there's not that much harm in just having another 4th level available instead of the 5th level. You only have so many
Yeah.
5th level slots, anyways.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So let's
Exactly.
do. I'm down for that then. Let's do Elemental
Yeah.
Bane and then let's do Fabricate. So that'll be the 2 4th levels.
Yeah.
But that's
Yeah.
still a nice sequence. Yeah. And then
Okay.
Conrad, you
And
had
the-
your list.
I had there. My other thing was you have something here at 5th level.
Yes, I do.
That's not a thing. Rangers
I understand.
don't get things at 5th level.
Mhm. So in trying,
I'm gonna rewrite and say sometimes we could do non-traditional things, Conrad.
Yeah, but like doing non-traditional things, as in giving a subclass feature on a non-subclass feature level, is a pretty far departure.
so the reason
So.
why is because I was thinking about this in terms of utility, but then also
Mhm.
in terms of how do rangers keep up with marshals. And as we all know, fighters get an extra ASI. So with that, I was trying to think about something that is built in, that is going to synergize with extra attack, and then that could be
Mhm.
there. I would be fine with putting it somewhere else, but specifically that one at 3rd level, when you have all of your arcane fletches and you get that, or at 7th level, pushing it back more when there's, it kind of fell in between,
Yeah.
and I was just mirroring what like fighters traditionally
Sure.
have.
And that would
Sure.
kind of fill a hole where the ranger typically probably wouldn't really get anything and other classes are. So
Rangers
Especially-
get extra attack at 5th level, like other
yeah,
Yeah.
you
classes.
get
They
extra
do.
attack, but that's
But they don't get
That's
the
it.
ASI like fighters do. And if we're thinking about this as the ranger equivalent to arcane archer,
I had to keep in mind the fighter equivalents.
yeah.
Or-
Unless we're putting it at
Um,
what? Is it 17th level where they only get the spells? I could put it at 17th level, but an extra D6 on Hunter's Mark. So it's a matter of placement.
yeah. So
yeah,
I don't think it's like a super huge buff. It's just something that's gonna be useful for them anyways, and kind of equals the playing field a bit for the rest.
I think
I
yes.
do have a correction to this one though. The innate imbuement that I would like to put forward. I think instead of using a reaction to apply Hunter's Mark through the arrow, it goes back to our discussion during Magi Hunter of like having stuff you can use up, and I think, and y'all can yell at me for this later, is having a number of times you can, when you attack with your arrow, you can go ahead and use Hunter's Mark. Don't have to like use a reaction or a bonus action. You have like equal to your wisdom modifier amount of times you can, when you attack, you can automatically apply Hunter's Mark.
Now, is there a spell slot associated with it though?
Yeah.
That's why I'm saying like do it as an amount of times equal to, like for fighter, if you do battle master, you get like a certain amount of superiority die, and
Yeah.
that's kind of where I'm pulling it from. Is
Sure.
you get it like X amount of time, so you can't keep like using it on different enemies.
I mean, if you
But-
want to
Yeah,
kind
but
of compare it. Sorry, go ahead.
I was to say, but the equivalency of a 1st level spell versus a superiority dice, a 1st level spell is more powerful.
Yeah, that's.
I mean, I'd say if you're trying to kind of compare this to the fighter arcane archer, to kind of equal them out a little bit, you could have it kind of like with Action Surge. They have it once at a certain level, and they get it only twice at a later level. So with the Hunter's Mark, you could have it for free once per day or once per long rest, and then you can do it an extra second time for free later down the road.
17th level. That's when
Yeah.
that's when the second action surges.
Yeah, well,
Um,
5th
yeah.
and 17th, you can do it once and then twice for free without it spending whatever.
Okay.
Because like I like the idea of it. It's just if I had to choose between casting Hunter's Mark as a bonus action or as a reaction, I'm probably going to choose bonus action. Let's be real here.
Yeah, especially with Rangers, there's honestly not a super ton of things with bonus actions. I mean, there's
Well,
some useful stuff depending on
there's
the
a lot.
there's a
classes, but
lot of there's a lot of good
it's always
bonus
hard to
actions,
choose.
but so many of them are concentration spells.
Yeah,
And
you
that's
can only
the
do
biggest.
yeah. You start with a 1, and then you might change concentration to something else on the next. I mean,
Which is kind of why I'm going with being able to infuse your arrow with Hunter's Mark. So even if you get it on just that one shot, or it's like something equivalent, it's kind of being able to have Hunter's Mark without having to use concentration, so you can use it on the so many other things that you can use concentration on. And this is also considering that I know most rangers do, but Hunter's Mark isn't built into when you make a ranger. You have to choose that as on your spell list. So not everyone will.
That's a very good point.
That was
if you don't have Hunter's Mark prepared,
so flavor it in a way that
useless.
Mimics Hunter's Mark.
Yeah, I would say do it in a way
or
that
put
mimics
just straight up Hunter's Mark with a free cost, with a free use that mirrors action surge.
I think the wording that we're also missing here is that this only works if you hit someone with a spell infused arrow. So a magical arrow that you bought or crafted.
Yeah.
Or with one of the fletches.
Yeah.
Okay.
Which I think then kind of balances it back, being able to use it with an arrow hitting is like, because it's like there's not a guarantee you're gonna hit with it as well.
Yeah, that's what the reaction. That's why I was saying after you hit, then you can choose to apply it. I think that this would be a fine thing to move to 7th level. I think it would help. It would help bolster up 7th level a little bit because
it's only the one extra die at 7.
Yeah.
That's fine.
So it really help. It could help bolster up 7th level. Or the other idea that I had was you make that ability into a spell fletch.
That was the second part was I need to make. I know, and I built this in so that we could make more fletches.
Yeah. I think one of your fletches could be you hit someone, and if you hit someone with that spell fletch, it casts Hunter's Mark on them. That could also be an option. And I mean, you can include the text that it deals the extra d6 damage as well. For that Hunter's Mark does the extra d6 damage. So that was my two thoughts. Was either move it to 7th level and beef that up, or move that to a spell fletch instead.
I'm game for either, but I'm also eager to make a lot more spell fletches, and there are some that have prerequisites, so making this a 7th level prerequisite fulfills both of those. What do y'all think, Jeff and Saga? Because ironically enough, that is then back to the point of you have to make the choice to take that one.
Yeah.
Well, then, also on that note, when you do the spell-infused arrows and stuff, does it have to be a spell that you're knowing? Because if you don't know Hunter's Mark, you wouldn't be able to do that one either. So if you just had
Well,
that as an ability, even if you didn't have that spell, but it's still just the limited.
Well, it's you have to
Or,
activate the arcane fletch, is
yeah.
what the requirement is for it. So if it's on one that you made, or if it is some other spell infused arrow, let's say, I don't know, you're somehow able to get your hands on an arrow that it can have fireball the moment that it makes impact, you would still have to put a fletch on that in order for you to be able to trigger this. So it makes sense for it to innately be a fletch then,
Yeah.
because there's
I think it.
Yeah,
What's
maybe
it,
just
sorry?
have it as a fletch
A
then.
fletch. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it would make a better fletch because it goes back to, you could choose that. I would say make it a third level fletch so that even if someone doesn't have Hunter's Mark, they can still use it.
Mm.
yeah, I mean,
And
I think the spell fletch should say you hit it, you basically get to cast Hunter's Mark for free. You don't need to
yeah,
have it prepared or
Yeah.
anything.
Yeah.
and then that goes back to you don't have to have concentration on Hunter's Mark because yeah, you get it for that one turn, but you only get it if you hit, which is also pretty good because the amount of times that as a ranger you can have Hunter's Mark up and you just keep missing, and so you're essentially wasting your concentration on something you're not using.
Right.
Yeah.
But
I
I
think
think that's a good balance of having it be the fletch of like, if you hit, it applies Hunter's Mark automatically. If you miss,
Mhm.
well, then it doesn't do anything anyway.
I think if we put it making it a third level one, we should remove the extra d6 of damage.
Yeah.
Next.
Mm. That's fair.
I,
Because the
I
thing
think,
that I wanted to reward is Hunter's Mark is the base level version of enhancing an arrow. And so
Yeah.
that was the spell that I wanted to focus on. I like the idea of, because you said you have to pick that one. I mean, technically, if it's, we had mentioned not putting it later in there, but
Mhm.
could Hunter's Mark be in the prepared spell list?
that was my other thought, in that having Hunter's Mark be automatically prepared, but then it's so there's one thing where that technically wouldn't work, and it's that you get your first level spells at second level. And so it's like, all right, you either, well, I guess you still get another first level spell later then, because you can just replace it.
Yeah.
So yeah, actually that
Definitely.
would work, is to have Hunter's Mark automatically prepared.
Better than Magic Missile?
I think it makes more sense than Magic Missile.
Cool.
Yeah.
And that does solve that problem too.
And then being able to have the let's just say marked quarry fletch, so that if you have Hunter's Mark up and this arrow hits, you get to do another d6, and it's like, you can call it like marked quarry or something. Quarry. That does not sound
Quarry,
right in
yeah.
my head right now.
Oh, so you're saying change the fletch so it's
You're saying have a separate
not
fletch.
Well, I'm
having a
saying
separate
that
fletch.
instead of the innate, so if we're gonna put Hunter's Mark on the prepared spell list, and you want to do another fletch that is kind of connected to Hunter's Mark, do it in that if you have Hunter's Mark up and you shoot a creature with this arrow and it hits, you get to do an extra d6 on top of Hunter's Mark.
I feel like that has a lot of prerequisites to that specific situation. Versus
That's fair.
when you had a creature with a spell infused arrow, you can activate the fletch to cast Hunter's Mark on that creature, no concentration required, with an additional like D6 of damage. So the impetus is not going to be there's no concentration required. I don't think that that's enough of enticing enough for somebody to choose that one. But if you buff it with no concentration required and an additional D6 of the damage type, that seems a lot more reasonable.
That does, yeah.
And it's building upon the first level spell when it's a third level prereq. So that might solve, because Conrad, you had mentioned earlier, like maybe take out the wording for it, but if it's a higher level, could it sustain?
I think if we were doing it at the 7th level prerequisite, I think having it with the extra damage is very reasonable.
Okay.
I was just saying if we wanted to move it down to the 3rd level, because we're already walking a very thin line of allowing this ranger to concentrate on 2 spells at the same time.
Yes.
With that fletch.
That's fair.
That it goes back to, like, rangers have a lot of good abilities, but almost all of them are concentration based, or all of their spells are concentration, which then it makes it really hard to try to vary up what you want to do, because not only are you then having to keep up concentration on something, which can be broken at any moment by getting hurt bad enough, but also keeping track of your concentration, which everybody already knows is hell. Let's be real here. How many times have any of us as spellcasters been concentrating on a spell, and just for multiple rounds, us and the DM forget that we're concentrating on something?
It is the most missed roll, I think.
Yes.
In any game that I've run, and any game that I've been a part of. And I have also had to run those things and been part of those missed rolls in terms of concentration. It's hard. Because what it boils down to, early game, it's always 10. Later game, when you're making rolls where it's 18 and up, in terms of concentration checks, because you're taking palpable damage, like Blight's going to mess you up, that's where concentration checks are, I think, more noticeable. But when it's just the base, there's still a chance to break concentration, absolutely, and it really sucks sometimes. It really sucks when you have that +8 and you just roll that 1 and you're like, oh dang.
Yeah. But I think... Oh, go ahead.
No. You go.
I think there's also a level of... With these fletches, we could almost bypass some of those concentration spells, so then rangers can take other utility-based spells that they might want to take. Is just like... I'm looking at the list, and Ensnaring Strike, Hail of Thorns, Hunter's Mark, Zephyr Strike. Those are just level 1 spells that require concentration and are useful in battle. That means you can only ever have one of them up at a time. And... Go ahead.
No, you finish your statement.
You can only have one up at a time, and it's contingent on you not losing concentration.
Yeah.
And already you do kind of have the working around later spells, admittedly, with like the Flame Burst Fletch. It's like, well, that completely makes flame arrows obsolete, because you're never going to cast flame arrows when you can just go ahead and, in your downtime, make fire arrows.
Yeah. My one worry is, and I specifically built it around the idea of not encapsulating full spells and arrows, because if you're juggling multiple concentration spells through fletches that you can make, and there's nothing associated with those, then that gets wild really quick. There's still an action economy, and these somehow need to fit into that somewhere, which is why there's so much back-end work that's required in order to pull it off in a singular combat. So Hunter's Mark, I feel good about, especially because it still fits everything, and there's no longer a 5th level ability. So there's no crossover there. But I worry that if there's too many that have just full spells imbued to them, because they're supposed to be moments of magic to help with avoiding that issue, if that makes sense.
And kind of, I don't think I worded it quite right, but it's just like, I'll use this one as an example. Rhymed Fletch. When you hit a creature with this spell, you activate the Fletch to encase the target in icy bindings. The target's speed is reduced by 10 feet until the end of its next turn, and it must succeed in a strength saving throw or be restrained until the start of your next turn. It's like, that is, without the concentration, it's just remembering it. There is a similar to Snaring Strike, which next time you hit a creature with weapon attack, a rising mass of binds either point impact, and the target must receive 60 on its strength saving throw or be restrained by magical vines until the spell ends.
So creating...
While restrained by the spell, the target takes 1d6 piercing damage at the start of each of its turns. And it's like, you are able to get kind of past that by, it's like, well, it's automatically going to end by the end of its next turn.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's kind of what I mean.
They should or shouldn't have that.
I think it would be good to have some of them have it and some of them don't.
Okay.
I think it's about being very careful with it, especially considering they only get how many Fletches at third level?
That's one in the talk of proficiency bonuses with Magi Hunter. I wonder if it should be not just wisdom bonus, but wisdom plus proficiency. So that
you get wisdom plus proficiency, wisdom bonus plus proficiency per short rest.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's pretty reasonable because...
Yeah.
Okay.
Let's say you only have a proficiency bonus of 3. You got 3 arrows that do something special that's that what your class is built around, essentially. So I think plus the proficiency bonus is reasonable.
So I think that's fair because Arcane Archer, they don't have to use their infused arrows until they know that they've hit. It's like a smite.
Yeah.
Right? And I think this is you saying you're committing to it before you attack. And so if you miss, you just lose it.
Yes. Yeah.
So I think that's fair.
And that's why for 11th level, those are warded against breaking. Because up until then, they would have been. Which is very similar to the arrows that we talked about in last Verelia's, was the idea of the very transient, like one and done kind of arrow. But having a more steady supply that isn't as draining on the money pouch as buying magic arrows.
Which fabricate comes super handy as well.
Yeah. I think the thing I would suggest, perhaps, if we are going to change this to change it to having wisdom plus proficiency bonus arrows, I might change it to per long rest instead of per short rest.
Because an ability score modifier of 5 at 20 plus 6 is 11, which sounds great, but that's also at like extremely high late game levels.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, because as I think having they won't break if you miss with it and you can run and pick it up again at that later level, I think that makes up for the per long rest.
Makes sense.
Because now then they aren't. Because then that's actually a bigger benefit of they're not just a one and done. If you miss, you can go run and grab them again. Or even if you hit and you kill the enemy at the end of the fight, you can pull them out again and keep using them.
Cool. All right. Then, so now.
Oh,
you go.
Oh, sorry,
When I
no,
said
no.
the same thing.
What were you gonna say?
I was gonna say, now that we moved that 5th level hunter's mark enhancement to one of the fletches, 7th level is extremely underpowered, underwhelming in terms of 1 additional damage die if you score a crit. And forcing it up to something like a 19 or 20 is more feat territory or fighting style territory than
Yeah.
like a class ability or subclass.
So,
I would say, because this goes back to one of my other thoughts, is it makes sense kind of to only know 1 arcane fletch at level 3. I think, especially if you were to expand the list of fletches, you could also at 7th level, instead of just gaining an additional 1, an additional 2.
That was the hope, was it would be 2 every time. But you're saying have it be 1 at first and then 2?
Well, it said you say you learn 1 arcane fletch option at 3rd level. Based on what you sent me, I don't know if you
gain additional 1s at 7th, 11th, 15th.
You learn 2.
So you're saying you learn 2. You learn 2 at 3rd level, and you learn 2.
Oh, sorry. Additional 1s. I realized the implication of that wording. Yes, I'm not good at wording, but yeah, no additional options. But I did not.
Yes.
I did not mean to quantify them. I used the word ones.
Okay. It also, because it's, and once again, I don't know if you edited the document since the one you sent me.
Did I?
Because the one you sent me says you learn 1 arcane fletch.
I definitely did. I sent
too.
you the. Oh, I did the same thing that Conrad did. We sent you
Why
PDFs.
did you both hate me?
We sent you PDFs. I'm
yes.
sorry. Yeah, no.
Okay. See, but I have. See, this time, Saga, I have the same one as you.
Okay, so that's where my confusion was coming, because it was like, if you're only gonna learn,
y'all gotta read the stream. I have it up on stream. No, I'm just kidding.
the stream is on my phone, and I'm only looking at the chat.
Let me share this with y'all then. Here, let me do this.
I think the bonus to 7th level that could be nice.
Yeah, especially if we're going to expand the list.
Well, no. What I was gonna say is, I think that maybe the additional thing you could add to 7th level is saying, at 7th level, all of your attacks count as magical for overcoming resistances. Right? There is an innate amount of magic in all of your arrows now as you shoot them.
So what I'm hearing is your subclass and my subclass are gonna ranger fight.
Can you
I think
approve my request?
I think
yes.
Arcane Archer
can.
Oh yeah.
This is it. This is the technical difficulties.
Yep. Because I think Arcane Archer gets that kind of same ability at some point too, and we gave Magic Hunter that ability at 7th level, so it could be a good add-on.
Cool. Can y'all both access it now?
Yes.
All right.
Yes.
Hey Jeff, you want access too?
I've been watching on the stream.
Oh, thank you so much.
Because I'm not doing anything else on my main screen, so I just have to stream up there.
Yeah.
Okay. In my defense, I only have one screen, so I have all of the stuff on my screen, and then the stream on my phone below my screen. So.
Yeah, normally I run the stream on my phone as well, but I got nothing else going on my main screen today, so.
Yeah, you learn 2 Arcane Fletch options at 3rd level and gain additional ones at 7th, 11th, and 15th level because Arcane Archer learns 2 shot options at level 3.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That makes more sense because I was concerned about them only learning 1 at 3rd level.
Which, because of that causes an issue with the idea of magical and overcome resistance because that is the exact word for word 7th level ability of Arcane Archer.
Oh, really? It is?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's why
I mean, it would make sense.
it makes sense in there. And I mean, in terms of the possibility for things, I think put that up. Yeah.
Especially considering we are talking about a ranger.
Mm-hmm.
Let me check something really quick. So, I remember correctly, and I'm kind of reading through quickly as I say this. For rangers, the 7th level ability always is about like strengthening your attacks. Like Monster Slayer at 7th level, you gain extra resilience against your prey's assaults on your mind and body. Whatever.
I think some of
the
them
target...
give you spell access.
Some
as
of
well.
them, I'm just quickly reading through as I'm thinking. But like, I think what it seems to be a lot of the time for... I read Horizon Walkers like 5 times in a row. What the fuck? It's... Sorry, I like had it there, and then I'm also reading, so I'm just...
You're all good.
Because I agree that the 7th level needs to be buffed a little bit, but I can't think of how in the moment. But I think if we're also going back to whenever you score a critical hit, roll 1 additional damage die for the spell's damage. You could also do, because it's you could do a slight boost to dexterity as well, just automatically with 7th level. Because I believe, like I said, I've been reading as I've talked.
Haven't touched like proficiencies or anything either. There could be tool proficiency associated with it.
Like crafting.
Wood carver tools.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's definitely an option.
Because like, kind of what I was going with is like, as an example, in Gloomstalker, you gain proficiency in wisdom saving throws, or intelligence or charisma. So there is, and though rangers would already have proficiency in dexterity saving throws, I think that gives us enough prerequisite with already created stuff to say that at 7th level you can get like a +1/+2 bonus to your dex. Just go ahead, just already built into the class, because rangers are already very dex built or dex based. You get a free like upgrade to it essentially, along with the additional damage die. I think either the woodcarver's tools or the I would say +1 to dex could be... Go ahead.
You're also getting the options, the 7th level
That's
prereq options
true.
for arcane fletches.
That's true.
I feel like maybe setting woodcarver's tools earlier to give proficiency with those, and then at 7th level give expertise.
That's it.
Oh, that could be
with
cool.
them.
Yeah, I like
Yeah.
that.
Because you so
That could be fun.
rarely in this game, you only ever get expertise with like, there's only like one main tool that people ever take expertise in, and that's thieves' tools. If you're a rogue, And it's like, I think having one built into another subclass where it makes sense would be really good.
Yeah, no, I think that makes sense.
Yeah.
I like that. Okay. Um. So the next thing on my list is rhymed fletch.
Oh yeah, no, the Fletches are. Some of them probably need to be revised because between the magic arrows that we've made, between the existing
Yeah.
like arcane archer options, I think that they can definitely be elemental in nature. Really, the only one that I like really sat with and tried to do something new with was the frenetic Fletch. But all the rest of them are pretty much just half echoes of spells. Because, like Saga said, yeah, it's Ensnaring Strike.
Yeah. Well, I think. Yeah. So I think the problem I'm seeing is the target speed is reduced by 10 feet. Okay. Until the start of its next turn, and then if it fails the strength save, and then is restrained until its next turn, that 10 feet reduction in speed doesn't actually do anything.
Yeah.
So just have one or the other.
Yeah.
And I would say do the
Strength. Or the
the
10-foot
I was gonna
reduction.
say the 10-foot reduction.
Well,
Is it Ray of Frost that innately has 10 feet of reduction?
Yeah. Keeping that in mind is that's the exact wording we did on our frost
Exactly.
arrow when
Yeah.
we made the spell when we made the magic arrows. Is it reduced the person's speed by 10 feet?
Yeah.
You could also I would say no, never mind. Bad idea.
I would love to do something that affects, and once again, this is an iffy one, something that affects turn order. I was thinking about that, but in terms of something that affects turn order at 3rd level, that's quite intense. And for you to qualify, well, they go at the end of the cycle. Well, then are you metaing like what the cycle is? And then if they're already at the end, then it's moot point. It doesn't matter. And so I was trying to think of different things. I think, of course, fire and ice have to be like in there in some way, shape, or form. Sure. But what their effects are can fundamentally differ.
Okay. What are our thoughts on the ice one? Hit by the icy bindings, it needs to make a maybe strength saving throw. We stick with that, or choose a different one, where its speed is reduced to 0 until the start of its next turn. So it's not under the grappled or restrained conditions, but it does have its speed reduced to 0, so it can't move. But it isn't unnecessarily under an effect, so it's not stepping on the toes of Ensnaring Strike. And then at that point, maybe you could add in like a bit of damage as well.
Yeah, it could be.
Oh, go ahead.
It could be difficult terrain as well.
I was gonna say you could do it as a dex saving throw, and then have them be, if they fail, they get knocked prone. Kind of going back to the idea of like slipping on ice. Yeah. Whereas like it does reduce their movement, but it kind of goes in a different direction.
Because they don't necessarily have to hit the individual. Because you could technically enchant an arrow and aim it at like the floor, and maybe that by having some arrows have that ability to affect the terrain, that becomes a lot more viable. So there's environment fletches, and then there's target fletches.
Oh, So yeah, maybe you should say you shoot the arrow and it creates a
like an ice slick.
When
Yeah.
you
yeah, an ice slick. Yeah, you create a 10-foot radius
when you
circle
hit
of difficult terrain.
or when you hit within a 10-foot radius of your target creature, it, as y'all were saying.
Yeah, I think if we're gonna commit to there just being environment, such as me, at those you're just not shooting at a person, you're shooting at the ground somewhere.
Yeah.
And the trade-off for those is they aren't attacking a person
They don't
specifically,
have damage.
but you can't.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have damage, but you can't miss, right? You're not going to be like, oh, I missed my shot here. You can just say, I do this.
And then they also have to do a saving throw, because that's essentially the 2-hit is the saving throw.
Yeah.
Plus, I'm sure certain people can get creative and come up with some other uses for it rather than combat alone.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think that's cool. I think that would be a cool idea. Let me pull up
If we want to
Sleet Storm.
If we want to do an environment one, I have an idea for one that could be interesting.
This is what I wanted to get into. This is the part that's going to involve everybody, because I want everybody to come up with spell fletches with me.
So the thought is calling it like Banshee Fletch, and the thing is, like, you shoot and it essentially does, like, it lets out a piercing scream that would cause, like, spellcasters to have to roll a concentration saving throw on if they're concentrating on a spell. Very specific use, but it's also like, how many times is that use in action?
Yeah, that might be like you have that one arrow always ready just in case. And it's just the only one of that kind that you
So
have.
the creature must immediately, when you hit a creature with a spell-infused arrow, you can activate the fletch to release a wailing cry.
Okay, so I think we're hitting the idea of, if you're hitting them with an arrow, they're already having to make a concentration check.
Yeah, so I think it's like, if you kind of, once again, like a 10-foot...
Fire an arrow.
I mean, you could just call this a anti-magic fletch, and when you fire the arrow, it basically casts Dispel Magic.
Well, I think that it's like, if we're going with environment, is the 2-hit is the saving throw versus the damage.
I see. So you're basically, you're not hitting someone with it. You're like shooting it at the ground in front of them.
Yeah,
and in this region,
it's the same as the rhymed fletch of, like, you're not hitting the individual, you are hitting it in the area, and it's like, if they pass the concentration saving throw for their spell, then, well, yeah, you shot it, but, you know, you took a chance. It's the same thing as, like, you can shoot an arrow and it might not hit.
Yeah.
So
you see that, like, being like in an area, like everyone that's concentrating on a spell in this area has to make a concentration check.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Using reactions.
Honestly, that could just...
Would that be a just immediate concentration check? Because
no, just immediate.
Okay.
Yeah, it would be
concentration checks don't like cost anything.
Yeah.
On a spell within a 10-foot radius, must immediately against.
I honestly think you could make that bigger than a 10. I think you could make the screen bigger than a 10-foot radius.
Mm-hmm.
Thing.
Like, well, what would you? I would say.
I'd say 20-foot radius, honestly.
Yeah.
20-foot radius.
I think 10 is actually pretty reasonable.
Because it's 20 feet.
Quite a bit of area. Yeah, it's 20 feet across. That's 4 squares by 4 squares.
20-foot radius is
an
entire. That's an entire mage's school. Honestly,
that's a whole room.
It could be a whole room, but if you're out in the open, it could also be.
But there's I think reasonably, if you're firing this arrow and it's environmental, you would very much not be firing it at the foot of one person.
Yeah,
You would be getting
aiming.
everybody else in it. So 10-foot radius seems...
That seems pretty reasonable. Like you
Yeah.
shoot in between
Yeah.
the two casters that are behind that thing and right over there, kind of thing.
Yeah.
I think that should be that should definitely be just a
Third
third level.
Yes, I agree.
Yes.
So Rhyme Fletch is
I left that
Icy
one.
Slick.
I'll need to come back to it.
Oh, yeah.
Prerequisite.
I just thought of the name and I was like, what could be an arrow?
I don't think you even need to put the prerequisite third level, because
On Banshee Fletch?
that's when you first gain access.
Oh,
I'm saying,
right.
I don't think you just need to put prerequisite third level, because that's when you first gain access to
No.
it.
I misworded that. Thank you for catching me. Because, no, it should be at 7th. So yes, I was...
But I was just saying, for Banshee Fletch, I don't think you need to put third level prerequisite, because that's the first time they'll get access to it anyway.
Yes.
That third level.
I just can't count.
No, I think Banshee Fletch would be good at third level because it's...
No, I was saying that I thought the Banshee
Yeah.
Fletch would just be one at the initial.
Cool. So...
Yeah, then Rhyme.
yeah.
Mm-hmm. I think there's also an interesting thing of that doing the lower level ones be... I mean, so far 2 of them are, but having the lower level ones be more environmental versus as you get higher, you might be doing specific damage as your magic gets stronger.
That's fair. Or it could be very uncontrolled. That's the reason why I put Frenetic Fletch in there.
Yeah.
I was gonna add something to Frenetic Fletch is, I think you could maybe include the Shocking Grasp, lose your reaction in Frenetic Fletch.
Oh. Is that too much if it's also hitting everything within 15 feet of the target?
I think if you did that, you would have to remove the or half on a successful save. It would make
make
a
a save or
full
suck.
save or suck.
Mm.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I could get behind that because it's still affecting a wide range of people, which I like. I don't know.
Because honestly, rangers need more area of effect stuff.
Yeah.
It's why I'm so excited when Folk gets her Dragon's Breath, and then Lonan also gets the Dragon's Breath. And Silver's gonna really regret making Folk have the necrotic energy.
Yeah.
Now, I was thinking about a healing Fletch of some sort. It feels really bad if you just shoot an arrow into somebody. So I was trying to flavor it more like Wither and Bloom, where it's damage and then they can heal for the same amount, because the convolution of hit die with Wither and Bloom is a mess.
Yeah.
Banebreaker Fletch is the one that I'm worried about, and the one that I would most easily put at level 11 because of how general the wording is.
I would move that one to 11th if you keep the wording.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think you might need to
15th?
change the wording anyway.
Well, that's fair.
Because or move it to 15th. Because right now it's reading as you cast counterspell at 9th level.
It goes back to what we were discussing, like what we put in Banshee Fletch of having, and what the other environment Fletches do is having a saving throw attached.
Yeah.
Of having the spellcaster have to make a saving throw.
Now, originally the intent behind it was to have a break on a negative effect. So it's another one that you would presumably fire into somebody. to end an effect. So not to
Yeah.
end a spell per se, but to almost functionally like greater resto somebody.
Oh, interesting.
Because it's supposed to be a protection against like negative effects. I totally understand. My wording
Okay.
and my numbers are not the best. I apologize. But
Yeah, I think we might want to just rework.
Negative.
If that was your idea,
yeah.
You might want to change the wording to like condition.
One negative.
Yeah.
And a condition on
magical.
Add a and a negative condition on someone.
Yeah. Cool.
And then I don't think it needs to be at
15th level then. Yeah, no. It could be 11.
Yeah, I don't think it needs to be at 15th. I think
Should
it should be at
11th? Yeah.
Because then it's basically a greater restoration.
Yeah.
Which so 11th level.
Should there
Because then you could shoot someone with an arrow and end the petrification on them. That'd be very, very funny.
There be one negative magical condition or just negative condition? Because I feel like it should still say magical.
I think it could be just any negative condition, right? You could end a.
Hey, there's some terminal illnesses that I don't think you should maybe be able to end by shooting somebody with an arrow.
Yeah,
but
feel...
if you got poisoned or blinded by a non-magical means, then it would feel really bad that you wouldn't be able to end that with your Banebreaker arrow.
But it is bane breaking, so it should innately be magical.
I think also if you were to make it magical, that would give it like, you don't have to put it at 15th, it being at 11th. Because if it was just all negative, one negative condition of any condition, I'm like, that might have to go into 15th. Because that is like weirdly overpowered.
I mean, that's Greater Restoration's only a 5th level spell.
That's fair.
So that people get access to it at 9th level.
So 11th level makes the most sense with where things fall for. Because 7th would be, they would have access to it too early.
Yeah.
They're already half caster.
Yeah.
Cool. This one feels like a lot more discussion about mechanics than Magi Hunter was.
Yeah. No,
yes.
I've left there are some places that I left gaps, and that's why I was like, I want to go over these things. But I also know innately that I'm gonna have problems with my writing because I'm not the best at wording it. And I did not get to make this one before Drake Warden came out. I apologize. It's a little more it's very fresh.
No, it's very fun.
This feels like it gives a really big refresh to how a lot of people play Ranger anyway.
Mm-hmm.
And it makes how most people are going to play Ranger a lot more interesting.
Well, you can thank Silver for that, because the fact that he has us track ammo, and ironically enough, also Jeff and Ernie constantly being like, I got javelins. Like, that the ammo thing is so important. Which,
I mean, I currently have one broken arrow in my quiver.
You've been doing a good job with it, though. You normally go and pick them up afterwards.
I also bought a bunch when we were in that
6 spells.
Yeah, when we were in 6 spell.
No.
Yeah, I don't think Yorker has any javelins left, but what had happened before, it was saying I was out of ammo, but they were in my inventory. I just hadn't done the check mark thing because it confused me whether if you check them all, if that's how much ammo you have, or if you leave them unchecked and then you check them as you use it.
Oh.
So I think I had done it backwards. So it was saying I was out of ammo. I was like, it's in my inventory.
You were unchecking them, yeah?
Yeah. Not how so when you attack with it, it will automatically say that it's been used.
I have the same thing with my Staff of Healing. I have the same like charge thing. But
yeah, I think when I had bought the javelins, I had changed it and had done it backwards. I think that's what it was.
Well,
Yeah.
I do agree that this one's probably going to take a little bit more work. But I also know that we're getting pretty close to our time as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, we got half an hour, right? Oh no, are we out of time?
Yeah.
Are we out of time?
We were
Oh,
going to end
no.
at 9:30. But
Oh,
We're
no,
just
we're
gonna
still in the
have
clear.
to-
Yeah,
We're
still
just gonna
filming right
have to do this, finish this one up next time we talk Verelia's
Oh,
Cauldron.
geez. No, I'm really sorry. Me personally, I can't leave this just this way. I have to clear all the comments and I have to readdress. So it'll be very different next time. But yeah, no, this is a lot of fun. And I appreciate everybody
Yeah.
for being here as well.
Mhm.
Are there any kind of like last thoughts that we want to address for Magi Hunter or for Spell Fletcher?
Hey, people in the chat, people in comments, if a Spell Fletcher and a Magi Hunter got in a fight, who would win?
No, we all know the answer to that, and it's definitely the Spell Fletcher.
now.
Oh, come
I would
on.
Definitely the
say-
barbarian that comes along, anyways. So
My only like big thought, and it's about Spell Fletcher since that's what we've been talking about, is that we're gonna have a fun time going back and forth between each other talking about what new Fletches you should create. Cause like
Yep.
if you're gaining 2 at each level, then you at least
No
need
good
10.
amount.
Yep. No, this was
Yeah.
going to be a huge think tank as to that.
Because right now, with the current number, there's only 7.
Yeah. Yep.
So we have
Yeah.
a lot we need to work on. So,
Mhm.
Shane, what's wrong?
people can comment if they have ideas too. We can just pop
Yeah.
ideas into the
Yeah.
chats as we go.
Yeah.
That would be awesome.
So, yeah. So leave a comment. Who would win in a battle between a Spell Fletcher and a Magi Hunter, and leave your ideas for any new Fletches
Yes.
as we are building this subclass.
But yeah, outside of that, we will be back to things next week, I believe, to our
Yeah.
regular scheduled Sybil Spear programming as we pick up with the party in
Chapter 5.
Mm-hmm.
In Torsland, about to go find out what
Torsland.
is going on. Torsland, what is going on with Fridier's home tribe?
Indeed.
And I will be here next
Absolutely.
week too. So
Woo! But yeah, thank you to everybody out in Streamland, and
Yeah.
looking forward
We
to the
love
next
you all.
Verelia's Cauldron.
thanks
Yeah.
for watching.
Always looking forward.
Put us so that you can
Ah.
see our next stream dates.
Oh, Silver came in at the very end.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, you've been there for a little bit. A few minutes.
Yeah.
I didn't even notice.
And he
Said
stated
the DM
very
would win.
correctly. Yeah, the
Oh yeah,
DM,
DM
would
always
win.
wins.
Mm-hmm. DM always wins.